Chapter 101. Half a day later, Yi Chen came back to the shore. What happened next made him speechless. The owner and the waiter of the ancient water lake had disappeared without a trace. As for his and Chu Ming's horses, of course, they were gone too. Both of them were riding on dark brown horses. Each horse was worth more than 60,000 silvers, which added up to 120,000 silvers, which was enough for an ordinary person to live comfortably for 10 lifetimes. If they didn't want to live an ordinary life, they could buy a small manor, become a master, and have 3 wives and 4 concubines, and countless maids. In short, if there were no disasters in this life, they could have everything. I hope you guys are always lucky and don't run into me again. Yi Chen didn't care about a dark brown horse, but he hated people who took advantage of others. If he ran into them, he wouldn't mind sending them to jail for the rest of their lives. With a flash, Yi Chen flew away on foot. In the ancient spring town. In the Flower Fairy restaurant. The owner of the restaurant was a beautiful young woman, who was not even 25 years old. Her husband was a famous sword artist in the surrounding area, and she herself was a late condensing reality realm warrior, who was known as the Flower Fairy. Ever since she started running the restaurant, her business had been booming, and she was not any less famous than her husband. On the second floor of the restaurant, a lot of martial artists were sitting there, drinking and chatting. From time to time, they would flirt with the lady boss. "Lady boss, your husband hasn't fought for a few years, I wonder how good his sword art is now?" Someone used her husband's name to talk to the Flower Fairy. The Flower Fairy said with a faint smile, "I'm not sure about this, but according to him, he can cut the Golden Water River in half with 1 sword attack." Cut the Golden Water River in half with 1 sword attack. These martial artists looked at each other. The Golden Water River was a big river near the ancient spring town. The widest part was hundreds of meters, and the narrowest part was also hundreds of meters. Even if he cut the narrowest part with 1 sword attack, it would still be a big deal. In addition to his powerful sword art, his cultivation was at least at the peak of early clasping Yuan realm, or even mid-clasping Yuan realm. The Flower Fairy took in everyone's expressions and nodded in satisfaction. Ever since she came to the Blossom Immortal restaurant, countless people had drooled over her beauty. If it wasn't for her husband's fame and strength, there would have been people who would have tried to snatch her away. It was necessary to teach them a lesson. You've found a good husband. Reaching such a realm at the age of 26 is enough to be mentioned in the same breath as the disciples of the sects. No. As the Flower Fairy spoke, her gaze landed on the seat next to the window. There sat a young man in a white robe. His features were delicate and handsome. At this moment, someone said, "June is almost here. The Sky Cloud Martial School's inner disciple competition is about to begin. To be honest, I would like to go and have a look. I want to see it too. Too bad no one invited me." "Invite you? Dream on. Even some clasping Yuan realm martial artists weren't invited, not to mention you. Unless you are a relative of one of the Sky Cloud Martial School's inner elders, that would be quite possible. I'm just saying. By the way, Flower Fairy, has your husband been invited?" The Flower Fairy nodded. "The invitation letter arrived 10 days ago, but my husband is currently in seclusion, so I don't know if he can make it in time." Her husband's name was Song Qingyun, known as the Blue Cloud Sword Artist. He reached the clasping Yuan realm at the age of 21. His sword art was extremely sharp, and he was quite famous in the Windy Nation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been invited by the Sky Cloud Martial School to watch the Inner Disciple competition. TSK, it's a great honor to be invited by the Sky Cloud Martial School. But with the reputation of the Blue Cloud Sword Artist, it's normal for him to be invited. In our area, besides the Blue Cloud Sword Artist, only that old kidnapper and the 5 mountain master Pei Zhongli have been invited. Pei Zhongli, isn't that the father of Pei Shaoqing, one of the top 10 inner disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School? Yes, the Pei family is the #1 family within hundreds of miles, and that Pei Shaoqing is also very good. He became an outer disciple at the age of 12, an inner disciple at 13, and now he is only 16, but he is already one of the top 10 inner disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School, ranked in the top 5. Pei Shaoqing, this kid is indeed very good. But don't be fooled by his friendly attitude, He is not friendly when fighting, he is very cruel. If there are no accidents, this kid has the possibility to be in the top 3, maybe he can even fight for the first place. Not necessarily. Pei Shaoqing's good friend Ghost Sword Li Kuang should not be underestimated either. I heard that he had obtained a low-rank Earth Realm sword art 2 years ago. Even if he had only comprehended 60 to 70% of it, it would still be enough for him to look down on the others. Ghost Sword Li Kuang. The ears of the teenager in the white robe twitched slightly. He could clearly hear everyone's conversation. He did not care much about Pei Shaoqing, but he was interested in Ghost Sword Li Kuang. He had heard of this person before. He had a unique understanding of sword arts since he was young. His sword art was unpredictable. It was completely different from the normal sword arts. Therefore, he had never practiced the sword arts of the Sky Cloud Martial School until one day, when he accidentally obtained the inheritance of a deceased senior and learned a low-rank Earth Realm sword art, 9 Ghost Shadow Swords. With this sword art, his reputation skyrocketed, and he earned the title of Ghost Sword in the martial world. He could be considered as the #1 sword artist among the top 10 inner disciples. The handsome teenager was Yi Chen. After he lost his dark brown horse, his speed did not decrease, instead, it increased. He could travel more than 3,000 miles in a day, and this was because he was afraid that he would lose too much Shen Qi, so he would rest for a while. The ancient spring town happened to be on his route, so he came to the Flower Fairy restaurant to rest. I have already touched the edge of the sword intent, but unfortunately, the lone peak of 13 swords is not that high ranked, so I am still at a disadvantage. I wonder what kind of rewards I will get from the inner disciple ranking competition. Yi Chen's strongest sword art was still the Tyrant Fist. Although the lone peak of 13 swords had the advantage of sword qi, it was still not as good as the ghost sword Li Kuang. As for Pei Shaoqing, it seemed that he was more famous than the ghost sword, but Yi Chen was more interested in people who used swords. The ghost sword is nothing. Among the top 10 inner disciples, who can compete with the Blood Shadow Sword Meng Chong? He is the only disciple in the Sky Cloud Martial School who has completed the 1000 kill. Even the core disciples could not do it. I am afraid that this year, he will not only be the #1 inner disciple, but he will also challenge the other core disciples. With his sword art, it should not be a problem for him to be in the top 15. That's true. Meng Chong's status as the #1 inner disciple is undeniable. The others can only compete for the 2nd to 10th place. Maybe there will be even more outstanding inner disciples who will compete with the top 10 inner disciples. It will be very intense. I will go find my brother-in-law tomorrow and ask for an invitation. He has a good relationship with one of the inner elders of the Sky Cloud Martial School, so there should be a chance. My cousin's teacher used to be in the Sky Cloud Martial School. I wonder if he can bring me. Everyone's heart was itching for an invitation. They could not wait to have an invitation right in front of them. At this time, Yi Chen had already finished his lunch. He threw down a silver ingot that weighed 10 silvers, stood up and walked through the crowd, heading downstairs. A Jianghu man accidentally saw the cloud pattern on Yi Chen's sleeve and said in a low voice, "I did not expect there to be an inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School here. What a mistake." There were a lot of people in the Jianghu who wore white robes. Plus, Yi Chen had been traveling day and night for the past few days, so his robes were covered with dust. It did not look that eye-catching, so it did not attract much attention. Now that someone mentioned it, everyone realized that Yi Chen was indeed an inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The Flower Fairy secretly smiled. She had already known about Yi Chen's identity. But seeing that he was only at the mid-condensing reality realm, she was afraid that it would not be possible for him to compete for the top 10 inner disciples. Of course, whether it was possible or not, she would find out when she went with her husband. She hoped that her husband would come out soon. Chapter 102. Being on the road for a couple of days was not without its benefits. At least, Yi Chen felt that his Shen Qi had become a lot purer and easier to use. Of course, people who did not have a strong enough soul power would not be able to notice the subtle changes. After returning to the floating cloud palace, Yi Chen walked to the ranking wall. There was basically no change in the ranking this month. The ranking was still the same. As for why, It was very simple. Everyone was focused on the competition that was going to start in June. There was no need to work so hard right now. It would be more suitable to wait until the competition to amaze the world. Looking at the bottom, Yi Chen smiled. He was ranked last, and the few people who were in the same batch as him were all in the top row. All right, I should take advantage of this competition to become one of the top 10 inner disciples, so that I won't have to challenge other people in the future. Yi Chen did not really care about the ranking in front of him. In the competition, everything was fair. You would not get any special treatment just because you had a high ranking. But right now, the most important thing for him was training. The mid-condensing reality realm was too low. He had to at least reach the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm. Then, he would not have to be afraid of anyone among the inner disciples. At night, Yi Chen sat down to cultivate. In the morning, Yi Chen sat on the cliff, training his sword intent. At noon, Yi Chen would go to the pool under the waterfall to train his body. As the days passed, it was getting closer and closer to June. Deep in the mountains behind the windy mountain, next to the rock mountain, a burly young man with a height of 2 meters and a naked upper body stood there. His eyes were like lightning, and his muscles were bulging. His terrifying aura was even stronger than a beast of the same level. Anyone who was stared at by him would feel as if they were facing an ancient beast, and they would tremble in fear. Roar. The muscular young man opened his mouth and roared. The muscles on his upper body shook like a mountain. His bones also made a sound like a bow being pulled, as if dozens of people were shooting arrows at the same time. The ground cracked under his stomp. The muscular young man opened his arms and slammed into the rock mountain. Rumble. The 20 meters tall, 6 to 7 meters thick rock mountain was broken into pieces. Huge rocks that were as tall as a human flew in all directions. His face did not even blush. The muscular young man mumbled to himself, "The competition is about to start. I, Xiao Yi, will not be willing to be ranked below others. I will definitely fight for the first place. Once I become the number 1 inner disciple, I will challenge Xu Jing and see who is the strongest in the Sky Cloud Martial School." There were 36 mountains in the Sky Cloud Martial School, which were specially prepared for the inner masters to train. There were 36 mountains in the Sky Cloud Martial School. The white-robed elder said to the youth beside him, "Li Yun, as soon as you were promoted to an inner disciple, you became my disciple. In these 3 years, you have never gone out to do any missions or participate in the ranking competition. You have been concentrating on your cultivation, but this time, you must participate in the ranking competition. Otherwise, the sect leader and the other elders will think that I am delaying you and not giving you enough opportunities to train." The young man's expression was grave and stern as he said, "Master, don't worry. I will let others know that even if I have never been in Jianghu, I can still defeat other disciples." The white-robed elder shook his head, "Don't look down on others. Although your strength is enough to be in the top 5 of the inner disciples, it is still a bit dangerous to fight for the top 3. As far as I know, Ghost Sword Li Kuang and Pei Shaoqing both have the strength to be in the top 3. As for that Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong, his fighting strength is so strong that even I, as an inner elder, am a bit surprised. I'm afraid you are still not his match." The cold-looking youth said, "Master, didn't you tell me that if I want to fight, I should fight for first place? Otherwise, everything else is meaningless." "Hehe, that's what I've said. Then do your best to fight for the first place. If I'm not mistaken, your biggest opponent will be the Blood Shadow Blade, Meng Chong, and your second opponent will be the Ghost Sword, Li Kuang. His sword art is unpredictable, unlike the Sky Cloud Martial School. You must be careful when you meet him, don't lose to him in sword art." "In terms of sword art, I will not lose to anyone." The white-robed elder nodded. Not to mention other things, in terms of sword art, there were not many people in the Sky Cloud Martial School who could compete with his disciple. After all, after 3 years of hard work, the young man already had his own style of sword art. If he was given time, he might not lose to the number 1 disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Hidden Fragrance Sword Jumai. "All right, 3 months of closed-door training, let me see your current strength." Ding! The sword came out of the scabbard, and the cold-looking youth waved his sword towards the sea of clouds. Silently, 13 sword marks appeared in the sea of clouds. Each sword mark was the same length, and there was almost no difference between them. It was as if they were all copies of the same sword mark. The white-robed elder's eyes flashed with a surprised look. 14 sword lights. I can't believe that your sword light has reached the highest level. If someone was here, they would definitely be confused. There were 13 sword marks in the sea of clouds. Why were there 14 sword lights? Black Dragon River, Sunflower Water tributary. In the last 3 months, a new small gang was established here, called the Sunflower Water Stronghold. The Sunflower Water Stronghold had 3 leaders, all of whom were at the peak of the condensing reality realm. Among them, the head leader had already touched the edge of the clasping Yuan realm, and would only need 1 or 2 months to become a clasping Yuan realm warrior. In addition, the Sunflower Water Stronghold also had 7 or 8 late condensing reality realm warriors, more than 20 mid-condensing reality realm warriors, and 40 to 50 early condensing reality realm warriors. As for the mortal realm warriors, they were basically cannon fodder, and there were also hundreds of them. The outer gate of the Sunflower Water Stronghold was split in half with a bang, and an arrogant and wild young man walked in with big steps. People of the Sunflower Water Stronghold, come out and die. Whoosh. There were at least 100 Stronghold members surrounding the young man, and then there were dozens of elite Stronghold members, all of whom were condensing reality realm warriors. Looking for death, you dare to accept the mission to destroy my Sunflower Water Stronghold, kill him. With a command, the tall and sturdy young man was immediately drowned in the sea of people, and his figure could not be seen. Ha 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 ha, all of you, die. The blood-red blade light crisscrossed in the sea of people, and everywhere it went, there would be dozens of people's bodies cut open, and blood splattered everywhere. There was simply no one who could withstand a single attack, no, not even a single attack, because even the condensing reality realm elite stronghold members could not block half of the power of the tall and sturdy young man's blade. How can he be so terrifying? Who is he? Ah, I know, he is the Sky Cloud Martial School's Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong. Run quickly. Someone saw something from the tall and sturdy young man's blade art, and his face was full of fear. Slaughter the common people, die for me. The tall and sturdy young man laughed arrogantly, and the murderous intent in his laughter soared into the sky. Soon after, a mournful and terrifying blood-red blade light flashed, and every time the blade fell, there would be at least 10 people dead, and the ground would be cut open with a hideous blade mark. Blood flowed like a river, and the people of the Sunflower Water Stronghold were almost all killed. At this moment, another 3 people rushed over. They were the 3 leaders of the Sunflower Water Stronghold. The third leader's weapon was a pair of Shen flower axes, the second leader's weapon was the eyebrow staff, and the head leader's weapon was a tiger-headed blade, which was the most powerful. The tall and sturdy young man rushed out from the corpses, and slashed at the 3 people. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. The 3 peak condensing reality realm warriors were instantly dismembered by this blade, and the blood-red blade light pierced through their bodies, and a huge gap appeared in the main hall of the Sunflower Water Stronghold. So weak, so boring. The tall and sturdy young man shook his head, and turned to leave. The moon-white robe on his body was not stained with a trace of blood. Chapter 103. There was a huge rock in the pool under the waterfall. Yi Chen sat down with his legs crossed, with the hidden cloud sword and its sheath on his knees. He had entered into a mysterious and ethereal state. The rumbling sound of the waterfall did not affect Yi Chen at all. In his perception, the world was no longer the same. The sound had completely disappeared, and the waterfall was falling slower and slower. In the end, the waterfall even started to move slowly. From time to time, a few water droplets would fly out of the waterfall. Under the sunlight, the water droplets would shine with a colorful light, like the brightest crystal. When he sensed that the waterfall had completely stopped, he opened his cold eyes. He pulled out his sword and waved it. All of his movements were done in one go, without any hesitation. Without a sound, the waterfall on the other side split into 2 and fell down in 2, unable to connect with each other. Boom! Boom! 2 loud booms came out, and the water splashed everywhere. I'm still half a step away from the sword intent. Unfortunately, this half step is the most difficult, and it will take a long time to train. Just now, Yi Chen had almost grasped the existence of the sword intent. Unfortunately, it was still a bit mysterious, and could only be counted as the half-step sword intent. There was still a slight gap between it and the real sword intent. Woo! As he let out a breath, Yi Chen slowly stood up. His body shook slightly, and the half-step sword intent immediately disappeared, making it hard for others to notice. After enjoying the scenery for a while, Yi Chen went back the way he came. Outside the yard, Wu Zongming saw Yi Chen coming back. He smiled and said, "It's not easy to find you." Yi Chen said, "There are only 3 days left until the inner disciple ranking competition. I want to improve my strength as soon as possible." "You're not planning to become one of the top 10 inner disciples, are you?" "More or less." Wu Zongming's eyes widened. "Really? The top 10 inner disciples are almost as powerful as core disciples. Some of them are even qualified to become core disciples. Most importantly, almost all of them are at the late condensing reality realm, and they have the power to kill normal warriors at the same level as them." The top 10 inner disciples were the most elite group of the inner disciples. Each of them had a combination of talent, perception, and willpower. They might not be as good as the core disciples, but as long as they were given enough time, who knew how far they could go? So for the sect, the top 10 inner disciples and the core disciples were equally important, and they would not be ignored just because of a temporary gap in strength. Yi Chen shook his head and said with a smile, "When did you lose your ambition? Aren't you just one of the top 10 inner court disciples? I heard that every year, a few people would be eliminated and new faces would appear." Wu Zongming opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. He felt that he was indeed a bit lacking in ambition. When Yi Chen was still at Mortal Realm Stage 6, he dared to fight against Zhong Haoren, who was at the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10. Now that he was already at the mid-condensing reality realm, why couldn't he replace the others and become one of the top 10 inner disciples? Not necessarily. You are right. I used to be the number 1 outer disciple, so I didn't feel too much pressure. But after I became an inner disciple, I was surrounded by the best of the best. With my talent and power, it was nothing at all. That's why I had been hiding my true thoughts, and planned to move up step by step. I didn't have to be so aggressive. Now that you have said it, I finally understand why the gap between me and Zhong Haoren has been increasing. It is because I have lost my courage and determination, and started to become an ordinary inner disciple. If Wu Zongming had not been with Yi Chen, he would not have realized this. But he had seen the changes in Yi Chen, and he felt that it was not a coincidence that Yi Chen could succeed, and it was worth thinking about. The joy of reaching the mid-condensing reality realm after taking the Zhenqi pellet had disappeared. Wu Zongming sighed. "What a sudden awakening. I thought that the Zhenqi pellet would be able to shorten the gap between us. But now, it seems that the gap is getting bigger and bigger. At least, I am not as determined as you." Yi Chen opened the door and invited him in. He said while walking, "Actually, talent is just like a stepping stone. It can give you a higher starting point than others. But if you want to keep improving, talent alone is not enough. You need to understand your own path and walk your own path." Wu Zongming forced a smile. "The path and the path are still too far for me. I really don't know what level you have reached." "Oh right, why did you want to see me?" Yi Chen asked. Wu Zongming patted his head. "I almost forgot. The ranking competition will be held in 3 days. We need to go and draw lots now." "Draw lots now?" "Yeah. Except for the top 10 inner disciples, everyone else has to draw lots and register their names. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to do it on the day of the competition." "That's true. Let's go together then." On the way, Yi Chen learned that the inner disciple ranking competition was divided into 10 groups, and each group had about 50 people. In each group, there would be one of the top 10 inner disciples, which was equivalent to a seeded contestant. The group competition would have 10 rounds, and the top 3 would have the right to go to the finals to compete for this year's top 10 inner disciple title. The others would be ranked according to the number of battles they had won. On the martial field, a big lottery box was placed there. There were 2 registrars next to it. Right now, there were already a lot of inner disciples drawing lots. Damn, so unlucky. How did I end up in Ghost Sword Li Kuang's group? You call that unlucky? My group is Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong. Who can beat him? I have no choice but to give up if I meet him. Yi Chen was confused. He stood at the back of the line. Soon, it was his turn. He reached his hand into the lottery box and took out a thin wooden card. On it was written, Group 7, number 28. Group seeded contestant, Feng Ping. On the side, the registrar wrote down Yi Chen's name and the number of his group. After drawing lots, the two left the crowd. Wu Zhongming asked, "Which group are you in? Who is the seeded contestant?" Group 5. The seeded contestant is Feng Ping. Flying Wind Feng Ping. Wu Zhongming was dazed for a second and said, he is ranked 6th among the top 10 inner disciples. His light body technique is ridiculously good. It is said that he can fly in the wind as if he is weightless. He is one of the more difficult ones to deal with. Luckily it was not me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to touch his clothes. Ridiculously good light body technique. Yi Chen was interested. To him, light body technique was also one of his advantages. He wondered how it would compare with Flying Wind Feng Ping. As for Wu Zhongming, he was in Group 3. The seeded contestant was called Xiao Yi. He was ranked 3rd among the top 10 inner disciples. He was even higher than Pei Shaoqing and Ghost Sword Li Kuang. He was a dual cultivator. His defense and attack were terrifyingly high. After leaving the martial field, the two went their separate ways. The third day. On the night before the ranking competition, Yi Chen had finally reached the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm. His Zhen Qi was more than 30% stronger than before. At the same time, his pure Zhen Qi had also reached the peak of the 7th stage. His Qi swords were almost solid, they were even more powerful than the sword light. Now, everything was ready. He just had to wait for the ranking competition to start the next day. Chapter 104. Dong. 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 Early in the morning, the sound of a bell came from the martial field of the windy mountain, wave after wave, spreading out for dozens of miles. On the mountain road, people from all over the world had gathered. Among these people, there were leaders of small martial institutions, leaders of big families, head guards of escort agencies, leaders of gangs, business leaders, city leaders of nearby cities, and some famous martial artists. Leader Lu, you are here too. Of course I am. The Sky Cloud Martial School is the biggest martial institution within tens of thousands of miles. Our small martial institutions cannot compete with them at all. So this time, I brought a few of my best disciples to watch the battles, hoping to inspire them. I also brought 2 young martial artists from the business, to show them what true geniuses are, so they don't get into trouble everywhere. Same here. These people did not usually interact with each other, but they still knew each other. They walked together in groups of 3 to 5, talking and laughing. At this time, it was obvious who had more power and who was more powerful, because only the powerful ones could make others surround them, not the other way around. In the inner disciple area, Yi Chen casually closed the door of his courtyard and started to walk towards the noisy martial plaza. So many people. Arriving at the martial field, Yi Chen was a little surprised. Last year, because he was beaten by Wang Gang, he was bedridden for a month, and missed the opportunity to watch the ranking competition. He had never seen such a spectacular scene of tens of thousands of people gathered in one place. There were 10 huge platforms in the martial field, each of them was round and 3 meters tall, and combined with the other platforms to form a flower pattern, it was very beautiful. The 10 platforms were surrounded by a circle of VIP seats, and above the VIP seats were the audience seats. From afar, the entire martial field looked like an iron pot. The bottom of the iron pot was the battle site, and the 4 sides of the iron pot were the seats for the audience. Yi Chen, over here. In the open space between the platform and the VIP seats, a large group of inner disciples stood there. Wu Zhongming waved at Yi Chen. With a gust of wind under his feet, he walked over. Wu Zhongming was slightly excited as he said, Group 3 and Group 7's platforms are one after the other. Let's just stay here. But I'm a little nervous now. Look, the people in the VIP seats are all important people. Even your father is here. Yi Chen followed his gaze and saw his father, Yi Tianhao, and his mother, Shen Yuqing, in the VIP seats. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing smiled at Yi Chen, their eyes were filled with expectation and pride. They had never thought that Yi Chen would be able to join the Sky Cloud Martial School's inner disciple ranking competition. Even if he could join, he would be at the bottom. But now, it was different. They already knew that Yi Chen had reached the mid-condensing reality realm, plus his talent in martial arts, he should be able to get into the top 200. Yi Chen gave them a reassuring look before withdrawing his gaze. At this time, the inner court disciples were basically all here, only the top 10 inner court disciples were still missing. Suddenly, the outer sect disciples in the spectator stands burst into cheers that soared to the sky. The top 10 inner disciples are here. The one in the middle should be Blood Shadow Blade Brother Meng Chong, right? Next to Brother Meng Chong is Iron Fan Brother Yi Qing, Brother Xiao Yi, Sister Ju Ruo, and Brother Pei Shaoqing. So powerful. Just like the others, the inner disciples who had arrived earlier all looked at the 10 people at the wide entrance. These 10 people were the top 10 inner disciples. Some of them were arrogant and overflowing with killing intent. Some of them were 2 meters tall and looked like ancient demonic beasts. Some of them had a smile on their faces and looked calm. Some of them had a face like a peach blossom and had a lithe body. Some of them were expressionless and had cold eyes. As the 10 of them walked together, an indistinct, earth-shaking aura spread out, attracting the attention of the important figures in the VIP seats. So powerful, just the aura alone is enough to overwhelm people. Wu Zongming gasped. Yi Chen smiled faintly, he didn't feel anything. He looked around and found that most of the people had lost their confidence and unnaturally looked away. Of course, there were also a small number of people who had excited expressions in their eyes. As long as he could beat them, they would be able to become the top 10 inner disciples. What was the purpose of a man's life? Wasn't it just for pride? Who did not want to be powerful and be admired by others? And the top 10 inner disciples were the best starting point. Because the platforms were in different directions, the top 10 inner disciples all spread out. On Yi Chen's side, there was flying in the wind Feng Ping, Madman Xiao Yi, and also Ju Ruo, who was also one of the top 10 inner disciples. There was a total of 3 people. They were 3 steps away from each other, not too far away, but not too close either. I don't think there are any powerful inner disciples on our side. Feng Ping looked around and said to Xiao Yi and Ju Ruo. Xiao Yi's long hair was draped over his shoulders, he looked extremely wild, they are still too young. In the past 5 years, the most unpopular one was only 3 disciples who got kicked out of the ranking. Normally, it would be good if 2 disciples got kicked out. Feng Ping looked away from Yi Chen and the others, he did not pay too much attention to them. After all, without reaching the late condensing reality realm, there was basically no way one could get into the top 10. In the past 5 years, there was only one core disciple, Xu Jing, that freak. Even the hidden fragrance sword Zhu Mai got the title of top 10 inner disciples when she was only at the late condensing reality realm, and then became a core disciple. Ju Ruo, whose face was like a peach blossom, said lightly, "Don't be too careless, you might fail miserably. The Sky Cloud Martial School might have a second sister Xu Jing." Wu Zongming said to Yi Chen in a low voice, "You didn't see the ranking competition 2 years ago. Sister Xu Jing won all the battles with her mid-condensing reality realm cultivation and became the top 10 inner disciples. When she becomes a core disciple, then Brother Meng Chong, the Blood Shadow Blade, will have the chance to be the top 10 inner disciples." Yi Chen nodded, he had never seen the full extent of Xu Jing's power. Even in the Northwest Plain, she did not use all of her power. It was hard to imagine how powerful she really was. The top 10 inner disciples were not easy to deal with, each of them had the power to kill warriors at the same level as them within seconds. It would be very difficult, almost impossible, to beat them. Wu Zongming changed his tone and said, "But Brother Meng Chong, the Blood Shadow Blade, was not that powerful the year before. It was only last year that he started to show his power, and no one could stop him. Some people said that he was already in the top 10 of the core disciples, and only after the ranking competition, he would be able to challenge the core disciples." While the two were talking, The head elder of the Sky Cloud Martial School flew onto the platform in the center. Clearing his throat, the head elder raised his voice and said, "Everyone, welcome to the annual Sky Cloud Martial School's Inner Disciple Ranking Competition. This year's ranking competition is the same as the previous years. There will be 10 groups, and each group will have a seeded contestant with a number of 0. They will participate in the group competition after 5 rounds, and all the previous rounds will be considered as wins. The competition will be done by drawing lots randomly. The 2 people whose numbers are drawn will have to fight on the platform to determine the winner. Also, the competition will be based on a point system. You will get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and 0 for a loss. The top 3 in the group will have the right to compete in the finals for the top 10 inner disciples. Let's cut to the chase. The ranking competition officially begins. As soon as the head elder finished speaking, the entire martial field became noisy again, and the sound waves reached the sky. Nodding with satisfaction, the head elder flashed back to the Sky Cloud Martial School's elder seats. Next to the platform, the deacons had already started to draw lots. The first group, number 3 against number 9. The second group, number 5 against number 23. The third group, hearing the head elder, all the inner disciples walked onto their respective platforms and started to fight with their opponents. Chapter 105. Coincidentally, Wu Zongming's opponent in the first battle of Group 3 was also at the mid-condensing reality realm, just like him. Burning Fist. On the stage, Wu Zongming yelled. He jumped up and threw a punch at his opponent. Boom! Hot sparks flew everywhere. The inner disciple was pushed back a couple of steps. After gaining the upper hand with only one move, Wu Zongming did not stop there. He performed his top-rank mortal realm skill, Flame Desolate Fist, to its limit. Dozens of fiery fist shadows spread out like a peacock's tail, causing his opponent to have no chance to fight back. After getting off the stage, Wu Zongming said casually, "Not bad, the first opponent is not that strong. It's only the first round, don't show too much of your power." Yi Chen reminded his opponent. "I know, don't worry. A battle would usually end in the time it takes for a fifth of an incense stick to burn. Rarely would 2 people be at the same level, and it would be hard to tell who would win. Some groups' battles ended quickly, and the second battle of the first round had already started. Group 7, number 8 against number 28. Wu Zongming said, "Yi Chen, it's your turn." "Yeah." Yi Chen nodded and jumped onto the stage of Group 7. Peak of the mid-condensing reality realm, my luck is not bad. Yi Chen's opponent was a teenager with straight eyebrows. He was holding a huge ringed blade. The blade was surrounded by a yellow chi flow. It looked extremely heavy. Yi Chen was speechless. His opponent was also at the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm. Why was he so lucky? Lose. The teenager with straight eyebrows suddenly rushed forward. The hard rock under his feet suddenly cracked. The huge ringed blade in his hands drew a thick arc in the air, directly attacking towards Yi Chen. Yi Chen shook his head. He casually waved his right hand. His whole arm was so fast that it left no shadow. It easily knocked away his opponent's huge ringed blade. His opponent thought that the blade was in his hand. He was about to attack again. Woo! The two were 5 steps away from each other. The teenager with straight eyebrows did not have a blade. He said in frustration, "Where is my blade?" Yi Chen pointed to his left. The teenager with straight eyebrows looked over. His huge ringed blade was stuck on the edge of the stage. It was shaking. He did not have the face to stay on the stage anymore. He pulled out his blade and jumped off the stage with a red face. He hated Yi Chen to death. He made him lose face like this. Unsurprisingly, Yi Chen won one battle. He got 2 points. Then came the second round, the third round, and all the way to the 5th round, where Yi Chen easily defeated his opponents without much effort. His score had reached 10 points. Wu Zongming lost one battle in the 4th round. He got 8 points. On the other side, Zhong Haoren was in the 10th group. He had broken through to the mid-condensing reality realm a while ago, and he had also won 5 battles in a row, gaining 10 points. On the other hand, Huang Bingwen, who had battled with Yi Chen before, seemed to have improved. He had only lost 1 out of the 5 battles, and had accumulated 8 points just like Wu Zongming. After the 5 rounds of competition had ended, the Great Elder announced a half-an-hour break, allowing everyone to recover their true chi and physical strength. On the eastern side of the VIP seats, Yi Tianhao smiled at Shen Yuqing and said, "Chenna is doing well. He actually won 5 matches in a row, and it looks like he's having it easy." Shen Yuqing was also very happy. He said, "We were worried for nothing. In the past 6 months, Chenya's progress is extraordinary. There's hope for him to enter the top 100. Indeed, let's wait and see." The half-hour break was over, and the competition continued. Unlike the first 5 rounds, the last 5 rounds would have seeded players joining the fray. If you didn't meet them, you could count yourself lucky, but if you did, you could only brace yourself and fight. This time, Wu Zongming was really unlucky. Although he did not run into any seeded contestants, he ran into an inner disciple who was at the late condensing reality realm. After a dozen attacks, he was defeated. Zhong Haoren continued his winning streak, accumulating 12 points. Huang Bingwen lost 1 match, but he still had 8 points. The 7th battle of the 6th round, it was Yi Chen's turn again. "Hehe, little brat, your winning streak ends here." The one who spoke was a young man with squinted eyes. He was about 17 or 18 years old, which was a bit older than most of the inner disciples. He had accumulated a lot of battle experience over the years, and could usually be ranked around 100. Shoo. This time, Yi Chen took the initiative to attack. He performed his crane shadow steps and disappeared from his opponent's sight. When he saw Yi Chen again, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. The strong fist power had pushed him off the ground and out of the stage. He fell heavily on the ground. The squinted young man could not believe what he had just seen. "How is this possible? He defeated me with only 1 attack. How powerful is he?" "Feng Ping, this disciple is not simple. It seems like he has been hiding his true power." Zhu Ruo glanced at Yi Chen and said to Feng Ping. Feng Ping shook his head and laughed. "Compared to the other inner disciples, he is indeed a lot more powerful. But against me, he can only lose." Xiao Yi grinned. "Although he is not your opponent, he still has a chance to enter the top 3 in the group." After another round, it was the 9th round. Number 0 versus number 24. "It's your turn." Xiao Yi crossed his arms in front of his chest and said. Whoosh. A light wind swept across, and Feng Ping's shadow was blown away. When he looked again, he was already on the stage. Such a fast technique. When did he get on the stage? He is indeed the flying in the wind Feng Ping. His movement is almost like the wind, invisible and formless. All the inner disciples looked at each other. Yi Chen frowned. Although Feng Ping's speed was unbelievably fast, what was really scary was that he could blend in with the wind. Once he combined the two, his Qinggong would have a qualitative improvement, and it would give people an illusion that they could not understand. Of course, that did not include him. "Brother Feng, my name is Jiao Liang, nice to meet you." The square-faced young man knew the difference in power between them, so he said respectfully. Feng Ping nodded. "Bring it on. I will not go too far." Hearing him, the square-faced young man's face turned serious. He took out his sword from the scabbard and swung it in the air towards Feng Ping. Swoosh 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 swoosh. The sword vibrated in the air, and 4 sword shadows appeared. Each sword shadow was extremely sharp, and they cut the air into pieces. Seeing that the tip of the sword was about to hit Feng Ping, the square-faced young man's face flashed with joy. At this moment, Feng Ping moved, his body leaned back, and kept the same distance from the tip of the sword as he floated backwards. "How is this possible? My sword's speed is not as fast as his movement technique." After chasing for more than 10 steps, the square-faced young man still could not hit his opponent, and his expression changed drastically. Feng Ping was not interested in playing with his opponent anymore, so he flicked his finger on the tip of the sword. Chin. With a light flick, the square-faced young man could barely hold the sword in his hand. The sword light that he had just condensed was instantly shattered, and his plan to attack through the air had failed. Immediately after, he was kicked in the chest, and blood came out from the corner of his mouth as he flew backwards. Brother Feng is too powerful. Fang Yang has been winning all this time, but he was still defeated so easily. Just how powerful are the top 10 inner disciples? Very powerful. Brother Feng did not even use his full strength. Looks like no one in our group can beat Brother Feng. That number 28 Yi Chen is definitely not Brother Feng's opponent. Chapter 106. Below the stage, Wu Zongming turned his head and said to Yi Chen, "Yi Chen, you have to be careful if you run into senior Brother Feng. His Qinggong is more than that." "I know, don't worry." Among the people present, Yi Chen could see it more clearly than anyone else. However, in terms of Qinggong, he really did not need to be afraid of the other party. In the 7th round, Wu Zongming, Zhong Haoren, and Huang Bingwen all lost. Wu Zongming and Huang Bingwen lost because their strength was limited, so they naturally lost when encountering a strong opponent, while Zhong Haoren lost because he encountered one of the top 10 inner disciples, Ghost Sword Li Kuang. Ghost Sword Li Kuang was indeed worthy of the title of Ghost Sword. With just one sword move, Zhong Haoren was defeated. Seriously speaking, the difference in strength between the two wasn't that big. After all, Zhong Haoren was one of the top geniuses in the entire Sky Cloud Martial School, so it was impossible for him to be defeated in one move. However, he could only blame his bad luck. Ghost Sword Li Kuang's sword art was famous for its unpredictability. As long as one's strength was slightly weaker, it would be very difficult for them to withstand even one move. That sword was like a nightmare, there was no way to block it. Zhong Haoren, who had lost the match, stared at Ghost Sword Li Kuang. He couldn't believe that he couldn't even block a single sword. Ghost Sword Li Kuang turned around and said as he walked down the stage, "One more year. Under the core disciples, senior brother Li Kuang is the #1 swordsman. Now that I think about it, I feel that the sword was too terrifying. My eyes couldn't keep up, my senses couldn't keep up, and even my intuition couldn't keep up. It was clearly very fast, but it gave people the illusion that it was very slow. If it were me, I would probably go crazy immediately. Senior brother Li Kuang is powerful, but look over there." An inner disciple pointed at a platform where two people were fighting. The others discussed among themselves. "It's one of the top 10 inner disciples, ranked 9th, dual spear Dong Haohua, senior brother Dong. Who is his opponent? I've never seen him before." "Me too. He seems to have appeared out of nowhere. Is there such a person among the inner disciples?" On a platform. The cold young man was expressionless. He placed his right hand on the hilt of his sword, pulled it out, and slashed. Kai. 6 sword lights floated over and covered Dong Haohua's entire body. Dong Haohua smiled confidently. He brandished the 2 spears that were 5 feet long. The spear shadows that filled the air easily shattered the sword light and rushed towards his opponent. Suddenly, Dong Haohua stood rooted to the ground. He lowered his head and saw that the clothes on his chest had been torn open, and a faint trace of blood was seeping out. "I lost. What's your name?" Dong Haohua knew that if his opponent hadn't been merciful, this sword would have taken his life. However, he didn't understand. He had clearly destroyed 6 sword shadows, so how could he still be hit? It was like seeing a ghost. "Li Yun." With these 2 words, the cold-looking youth walked down the stage. He defeated senior brother Dong Haohua, who is ranked 9th, with 1 sword strike. This is unbelievable. When did such a terrifying figure appear among the inner sect disciples? Even senior brother Dong was defeated in 1 move. This Li Yun should be able to compete with senior brother Li Kuang. I wonder whose sword art is better. Not far away, Ghost Sword Li Kuang squinted his eyes and stared at Li Yun's back. Finally, one of the top 10 inner disciples had been defeated. A lot of people who were not powerful enough did not have much hope for themselves, but they hoped to see a second, or even a third. Before the first wave had even subsided, another wave had risen. On the 8th platform, another person had defeated the 10th-ranked inner disciple, Iron Leg Song Fei. Although Song Fei was only ranked 10th, that was because his fighting style was too tough. If he fought head-on, his ranking would still be higher. On the other hand, Song Fei's opponent also specialized in leg techniques. He only threw out 3 kicks. The first kick scattered Song Fei's leg shadows, the second kick shattered Song Fei's protective Zhen Qi, and the third kick landed lightly on Song Fei's chest, leaving a footprint. Song Fei's kick was so light that it seemed natural. If it was just that, it would not have caused such a sensation. The inner disciple who had defeated Song Fei was called Tai Feng. He was 19 years old this year, and he was one of the oldest disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Everyone knew that he was hardworking, but his talent was average. However, after watching his battle this time, he gave people the feeling that he was a master. It was as if he had changed from a moth to a butterfly. This kid is a late bloomer. On the elder seats, an elder sighed. A few elders on the side nodded. Diligence can make up for one's lack of talent. Moreover, when he is extremely diligent, he will be able to understand many things that others cannot. This kid needs to be trained. Hehe, it is not that I have never seen late bloomers before, but this time, it is more shocking than any of the previous ones. It is like he has been reborn. Wu Zongming asked Yi Chen, "Yi Chen, what did you see? Why do I feel that those 3 kicks were ordinary, but the strange thing is that senior brother Song Fei could not block them?" Yi Chen slowly let out a breath. "That is power." Power! Wu Zongming did not understand. Yi Chen explained, "The so-called power is very mysterious, and words cannot describe it. To put it simply, he has understood the power of nature, and has integrated this power into his kick art. Therefore, although it looks ordinary, it is unstoppable. After all, in front of the power of nature, human strength is too small." Wu Zongming did not really understand. As the competition went on, the higher the score, the lower the score. So far, Yi Chen had 18 points, tied with Feng Zhongfei and Feng Ping for first place. Finally, it was the last round of the competition, the 10th round. The first round, number 0 against number 28. As soon as the deacon finished speaking, the inner disciples on Yi Chen's side became excited. In the previous 9 rounds, they could already see that Yi Chen was very powerful. After all, in the 10 groups, there were very few people who could win 9 rounds in a row. Besides the 8 seeded contestants, there were only a few others who could do so. Originally, if Yi Chen did not run into Feng Ping, he might be able to win 10 rounds in a row and tie with Feng Ping for first place. But now, it was probably impossible. Under everyone's disbelief, Yi Chen walked onto the stage. On the other side, Feng Ping said casually, "You are not bad." "You are not bad either." What Yi Chen said shocked everyone else. Brother Feng Ping's power is only not bad. Are you kidding me? You can't be so arrogant. Hehe, being too arrogant is not good. Let me test your bottom line. Feng Ping recognized Yi Chen's power, but he did not think that Yi Chen could beat him. His body flashed, and he disappeared, as if he had merged with the wind. Yi Chen did not change his expression. He waved his fist to the left, and the fist power and finger power clashed together, making a horrifying explosion sound. However, after that, Feng Ping's attacks became even fiercer. Finger power after finger power shrouded Yi Chen from all directions, and he still did not show himself. In terms of movement techniques, I have never been afraid of anyone. As he spoke, Yi Chen's body disappeared as well. Finger power after finger power turned the stage into a hornet's nest. Pa, bang, kai. On the stage, only fist shadows and finger power could be seen fighting. Because the two's bodies were too fast, and because it was too strange, only a trace of shadow could be seen. This is too fucking strange. How can we watch this? I did not expect this Yi Chen to be so powerful. He was obviously hiding his power before. Someone could not help but say, Brother Feng Ping did not use his real power, right? Chapter 107. Feng Ping did not hear the discussions below the stage. He was completely shocked. Among the inner disciples, there was actually someone who did not lose to him in terms of Qinggong. It's urgent. Feng Ping pointed out with his finger. The air was filled with fingerlight. The fingerlight tore through the air, and the sound was endless. Puff 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 puff. Yi Chen's body was instantly pierced through and scattered. It turned out that it was just an afterimage. Your Qinggong is just SOSO. Yi Chen's voice came from behind Feng Ping. Feng Ping was furious. His body was like a tornado, spinning violently. Countless finger light beams shot out in all directions, some of them even pierced through the stone pillars at the edge of the stage. Yi Chen's eyes were sharp, his body flashed, shuttling through the countless finger light beams. They were not shot at the same time. There were always some in front and some behind, some fast and some slow. With his powerful body control and speed, Yi Chen was able to sneak in and out of Feng Ping's space. He managed to get within 5 steps of Feng Ping. How is this possible? How can we not hit him like this? Including Xiao Yi and Zhu Ruo, all the inner disciples below the stage were stunned, their mouths were slightly open. Those with good eyesight knew that it was impossible to dodge all the finger light beams with just speed. After all, the difference between each finger light beam was very small, so small that it could be ignored. Plus, these finger light beams were not arranged in any order. There was no way to find a pattern. In order to pass through them, one's eyesight, heart power, stamina, speed, reflexes, and the ability to see the big picture all had to be at a high level. On the elder seats, the head elder had a smile on his face. This disciple is not bad. There are not many people who can beat Feng Ping in Qinggong. The second elder nodded. Feng Ping's movement skill is not to be underestimated, but he is still not as experienced as his opponent. He is also not as skilled. Haha, there are 3 disciples with potential. It is our Sky Cloud Martial School's fortune. The third elder could not help but laugh out loud. On the stage, Yi Chen threw out a punch, blowing away Feng Ping without hesitation. Yi Chen wins. The deacon who drew the lots was startled. He shouted out loud. Yi Chen was not too pleased with himself. His body slid and he instantly landed beside Wu Zongming. Wu Zongming's blood was boiling as he watched. He said excitedly, "That's great. Even senior brother Feng Ping's Qinggong can't match up to yours." He is still unable to comprehend the true essence of the wind. He only has the speed of the wind. Wind was formless and formless. If Feng Ping could comprehend it, Yi Chen's Qinggong would naturally not be able to catch up to him. Feng Ping walked down the stage in a daze. Losing to someone else in Qinggong was a huge blow to him. After all, he was full of confidence earlier and thought that he could easily defeat Yi Chen. The 10th round of the competition ended. The deacon who drew lots reported the score. Group 7, first place Yi Chen, 20 points. Second place Feng Ping, 18 points. Third place. The top 3 teams in the group stage would qualify for the finals. Feng Ping was not eliminated. Soon, the top 3 of the other groups were also announced. Wu Zongming lost too many matches and was disqualified from the finals. Zhong Haoren only lost 1 match and was ranked 2nd. As for Li Yun and Tai Feng, they were both ranked 1st in their groups. No matter how exciting the competition was, they still needed to eat. It was already noon. The first elder stood up and announced that the finals would begin in the afternoon. In the Sky Cloud Martial School's Inner Disciples cafeteria. I can't believe there are 3 powerful inner disciples this year, Li Yun, Tai Feng, and Yi Chen. Li Yun's sword art is too powerful. I still can't figure out how he defeated senior brother Dong Haohua. Tai Feng is not bad either. He defeated senior brother Song Fei with just 3 kicks, steady as a mountain. What do you guys think? Other than his Qinggong, what do you think about Yi Chen? Maybe his Qinggong is good, but to beat him, one must be in the top 6 of the top 10 inner disciples. Yeah, no matter how good his Qinggong is, if he does not have enough attack power, he will not be able to defeat senior brother Li Kuang and the others. Yeah. Other than Feng Ping, Dong Haohua, and Song Fei, the other 7 haven't revealed their full strength. They haven't even revealed 70% of their strength. It'll be very difficult to win against them. We can't be too weak in every aspect. Don't say any more. I will be so excited that I can't eat anymore. I really want to see the finals. At that time, the top 10 inner disciples will definitely go all out. It will be the peak of the inner disciples. In the afternoon, the martial arts plaza was boiling again. It was several times more lively than in the morning. On the central platform, the first elder raised his voice and said, "The finals will be divided into the elimination round and the ranking round. The elimination round will eliminate 20 people, leaving only 10, and the ranking round will decide the ranking of this year's top 10 inner disciples." Below, Yi Chen heard it clearly. The elimination round had a total of 10 rounds, divided into 3 platforms, but each platform did not have a fixed number of people. In other words, whoever was drawn would go up, and it was possible to choose which platform to go up. After the 10 rounds, The top 10 disciples would become this year's top 10 inner disciples. After becoming one of the top 10 inner disciples, there was still the ranking round, which was the most complicated. It needed a lot of rounds, so let's not talk about it for now. Now, the finals officially begin. The first elder gathered his zhenqi and raised his voice. Boom! The spectator stands were filled with cheers. Everyone was supporting the inner disciple they liked. The first platform, Song Fei against Jiang Hao. The second platform, Li Yun against Wu Yuan. The third platform, Meng Chong against Feng Ping. There was no suspense in the battles between the first and second platform, but the third platform was more interesting. After all, this was the battle between the top 10 inner disciples. It immediately caused a tsunami of cheers. 6 people went up on the platform. Unsurprisingly, Song Fei and Li Yun easily defeated their opponents and got 2 points. The battle on the third platform had not yet started. Feng Ping looked at Meng Chong seriously. As one of the top 10 inner disciples, there were 2 people he did not want to meet the most. One was the ghost sword Li Kuang, and the other was the blood shadow blade Meng Chong. The ghost sword Li Kuang's sword art was unpredictable. It was impossible to defend against. If one's strength was slightly weaker, there was almost no way they could pose a threat to him. But Meng Chong was even more terrifying. He had an overwhelming advantage in all aspects. It was almost impossible to meet him. However, Feng Ping still wanted to walk past Meng Chong's blade. No matter what, he was still one of the top 10 inner disciples. If he was defeated by someone with one blade, he would lose face. Meng Chong grinned and said, "Feng Ping, are you thinking about how to walk past my blade? Give up on that idea. Your strength is too far away from mine." Meng Chong walked towards Feng Ping step by step. His right hand was placed on the blade's hilt. Dodge. Feng Ping's scalp went numb. He quickly dashed to the side. His body instantly disappeared. You can't escape. Almost no one saw how Meng Chong used his blade. They only saw the blood-red blade light flash past. The next moment, Feng Ping's figure appeared. There was a long and narrow blade mark on his chest, extending all the way to his waist. Ha ha. After laughing a few times, Meng Chong turned around and walked down the platform. Chapter 108. So powerful. So powerful. Even brother Feng Ping could not take one attack from him. Although senior brother Feng Ping lost to Yi Chen, his movement art is still one of the best among the inner disciples. But he couldn't even dodge a single blade attack from senior brother Meng Chong. The gap between them is huge. This year, brother Meng Chong is even more powerful than last year. Hearing the discussions from the crowd, Yi Chen frowned slightly. The blood shadow blade Meng Chong was indeed very powerful. His blade art was very simple. It was fast, accurate, and brutal. There was nothing fancy about it. But in his hands, it was able to bring out the power that even gods and ghosts would have to run away from. When fighting against him, if one's technique was not at a certain level, one should not try to use techniques. Otherwise, one would die a horrible death. The second Meng Chong got off the stage. The top 10 inner disciples all looked at him with fear. The skinny Iron Fan Yi Qing forced a smile. I thought I could catch up with him this year, but it seems like I have been left behind. Next to him, Song Fei was surprised. Yi Qing, you were ranked second last year? What's the point of being ranked second? The gap is too big. He has already reached the top of the core disciples. Top of the core disciples. Song Fei gasped. He knew very well how powerful the top-ranked core disciples were. Although they were all at the late condensing reality realm or even the peak of the late condensing reality realm, the slightly more powerful core disciples could easily beat him with only one attack. Not to mention the top-ranked core disciples, they were the top of the top-ranked core disciples. The fourth battle was Yi Chen's turn. His opponent was called Yang Lai. Once he got on the stage, Yang Lai backed off as far as he could. He wanted to increase the distance between him and Yi Chen. He was afraid that Yi Chen would suddenly disappear in front of him. Yi Chen shook his head and forced a smile. He stood still. When he was 30 steps away, Yang Lai stopped backing off. He held his long blade with both of his hands and threw out 3 blade lights towards Yi Chen's position. Yi Chen moved his body slightly and skillfully dodged the blade lights. He stomped his feet on the ground and released his hidden power. Explode. Boom. The stage under Yang Lai's feet exploded. His body was thrown high into the air and fell off the stage. This was out of everyone's expectations. They had thought that Yi Chen would defeat his opponent with speed. They hadn't expected this to happen. The fifth match was against Zhong Haoren. Although he lost to Ghost Sword Li Kuang, his strength was still very strong. In less than 10 moves, he defeated his opponent and gained 2 points. There was no suspense in the 6th, 7th, and 8th matches. It was just pure abuse, not interesting at all. The 9th battle, Pei Shaoqing vs Tai Feng. Buzz. As soon as the lot-drawing deacon's voice fell, the crowd finally boiled over. Pei Shaoqing was ranked above Ghost Sword Li Kuang in the previous tournament. He had a friendly attitude and seemed to be easy to get along with. Only those who knew him knew that he was like a demon when he made a move. Even Li Kuang was afraid of this friend of his. Tai Feng was the representative of late bloomers. He had defeated Song Fei, who was famous for his leg techniques, in 3 kicks. He had the demeanor of a master and was as steady as a mountain. The two of them could be said to be at loggerheads. If they didn't fight, it would be hard to tell who was stronger and who was weaker. Tai Feng, you have to show mercy later, Pei Shaoqing said with a smile. Tai Feng replied honestly, okay. Nobody knew why, but when they saw Tai Feng's expression, everyone wanted to laugh, a knowing smile. This person was not hateful at all, they only admired him, admired his hard work, admired his perseverance, and even more admired his simple and honest, grandmaster-like bearing. Hearing this, Pei Shaoqing's smile disappeared and his heart tightened. His intuition told him that Tai Feng was not easy to deal with. If he wanted to win, he would have to use 120% of his strength. Unknowingly, Pei Shaoqing's palms had turned purple, like a demon. He shouted loudly and pounced towards Tai Feng with a palm strike. Woo 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 woo. The air was torn apart, emitting a mournful sound. Some of the nearby inner disciples' faces turned pale with fright. Tai Feng's expression was still simple, but when he moved, everyone knew that he was not easy to deal with. The pressure from the aura had no effect on him at all. His body slightly tilted and his right leg raised. With just 2 simple movements, Tai Feng's aura changed. A powerful aura gathered and integrated into his body. Break. With a single kick, Pei Shaoqing's palm power was disintegrated. The huge impact forced him to stop his momentum. However, as one of the top 10 inner disciples in the last inner disciple competition, Pei Shaoqing naturally still had energy to spare. His body circled around Tai Feng and suddenly launched a second wave of attack. Demons appear all over the mountains and plains. Woo woo woo. Roar roar roar. The purple and cyan palm wind was like a dark cloud, covering the sky and covering the earth as it moved towards Tai Feng. If it was someone else, they would have broken their mind before the fight even started. This time Tai Feng is in danger. Brother Pei Shaoqing is not Song Fei after all. How could he be so easy to deal with? I wonder how many moves Tai Feng can take. Yi Chen had a different opinion from the others. After Tai Feng's first kick, his aura had already gathered and the one in danger was Pei Shaoqing. Just as expected. Facing the sky full of cyan palm wind, Tai Feng put his tongue under his chin and let out a loud shout. His shout was like thunder, causing the air to ripple like water. One kick moves the wind and clouds, sweeping the world. Standing in the middle of the platform, Tai Feng's aura was limitless as he kicked out. This kick caused a strong wind to descend on the martial arts plaza. Accompanied by the majestic power of the kick, it went towards the cyan palm wind. Pop! Pop! The sound of thunder came out. The whole platform was in chaos. People could not look directly at it. The next moment, a figure was sent flying backward, spurting out a large mouthful of blood in the air. It was Pei Shaoqing. Unbelievable. Tai Feng won. How many kicks did Tai Feng use? Did you guys see it? It looks like it has 5 legs, but also 9 legs. Why did I only see the shadows of his kicks? Yi Chen smiled lightly. This Tai Feng was very powerful, and there were not many people who could beat him. Judging from the current situation, only the blood shadow blade Meng Chong had the power to suppress him. But of course, in a battle between warriors, anything could happen, and the more powerful one might not necessarily win. The elders in the elder seating area looked at each other and smiled. The late bloomer Typhoon was even more outstanding than they had imagined. That move just now was simply too brilliant. The wind stopped, and Typhoon, who was on the platform, smiled and walked down the platform. Everyone could only feel speechless towards this, and they wondered if he was really simple and honest or if he was pretending to be. Then, the competition continued. There were no strong fights like before. The next few matches were all won by overwhelming margins, without any suspense. However, in the last match of the first round, Yi Qing, the Iron Fan, made everyone happy. He waved his fan and countless shadows of his fan danced like dancing butterflies. His opponent did not dare to fight anymore and immediately surrendered. Chapter 109. The second round of the competition was a bit speechless. Out of the 15 battles, 11 of them ended very quickly. Almost all of them were the top-ranked disciples beating the bottom-ranked disciples. Yi Chen's battle was not included in these 11 battles, but it was not that far off. His opponent was Dong Haohua, who was not weak at all. Unfortunately, it was Yi Chen who had beaten him within 3 to 4 attacks before he had even shown his real power. There were 2 exciting battles in the third round. The first was a duel between the only 2 female disciples among the top 10 inner disciples of the previous term. The other was Xiao Yi against Li Yun. The 2 female disciples were Peach Hand Ju Ruo and Rainbow Sword Qiu Ruotong. Ju Ruo was ranked 4th, she was very strong, her slender hands looked like they had no bones, but after being touched by her, Qiu Ruotong, who was ranked 8th, immediately vomited blood and retreated, losing the battle. Xiao Yi and Li Yun's battle was too intense. One of them was ranked 3rd among the top 10 inner disciples last time, the other one was a new rising star. Both of them did not give in to each other, they were fighting fiercely, even the platform was almost destroyed by them. Xiao Yi's defense and attacking power were very scary. Normal sword light could not break through his Jinqi protection. One punch could explode the air in front of him, making Li Yun unable to get close to him. As for Li Yun, although he was a new rising star, he was not any weaker than Xiao Yi. He was evenly matched with the third-ranked Xiao Yi. His sword light splitting martial technique was perfect. The hidden sword light made Xiao Yi even more scared. In the end, the head elder thought that it was too long, so he called it a draw. There were also exciting battles in the 4th and 5th round. The outer disciples who were watching were very excited. Their blood was boiling. The 6th round, the third battle. Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong against Iron Fan Yi Qing. Last year's 1st and 2nd ranked disciples are finally fighting. I wonder who is stronger. You idiot. It must be senior brother Meng Chong. The battle has not even started. How do you know? Senior brother Yi Qing's fan art is so amazing. How could he lose? The one who supported Yi Qing was a female inner disciple. The people beside her rolled their eyes, thinking, another love-struck fool. On the stage, Yi Qing opened his iron fan and smiled at Meng Chong. Last year when I fought with you, I was able to last more than 10 rounds. I'm afraid I won't be able to last this year. Meng Chong said, there is no need to belittle yourself. Do you think that I will let down my guard against you? Hee hee. Yi Qing laughed. Come on, I know you definitely have some ultimate moves, and there's an 80% chance you're going to use them against me. Meng Chong still had his eyes on Yi Qing. His opponent had already fused his techniques and actual combat to perfection. He looked beautiful, but not flashy. It would be impossible to defeat him with a single slash. Step by step, Meng Chong walked toward Yi Qing. Just as he was about to take his 10th step, Yi Qing moved. In fact, he had no choice but to move. Otherwise, once his opponent found the most suitable place to attack, there would be no room for him to turn things around. The iron fan fluttered up and down, creating a series of illusory fan shadows that flew towards Meng Chong without any pattern. It was as if a large bag filled with butterflies had been accidentally opened, and all the butterflies had flown out. Break. Meng Chong lowered his body and charged forward, slashing down with his saber. Poochie. This saber strike grabbed the weakest point of the countless fan shadows, breaking through them. The blood-red saber gleam easily slashed towards Yi Qing at an unbelievable speed. This is what a fast saber should be like. Once it moves, it's amazing. I wonder what level that North Snow quick saber Lynch has reached. Seeing Meng Chong's saber art, Yi Chen couldn't help but think of Lynch, who he had met in the Northwest auction house. Both of them were famous for their fast saber arts. If Meng Chong was already this powerful, then that Lynch would be even more powerful. Shaking his head, Yi Chen knew that he had to work harder. Above Lynch, there were still young Master North Snow and young Master Duanmu, and above him, there was the top young warrior of the Windy Nation, young Master Emerald. Clang! The blood-red saber light was blocked by the iron fan. Yi Qing's body was knocked back by the impact. Good, since you can take my first saber attack, you can definitely take my second and third. Meng Chong was excited. The blood-red saber light crisscrossed in the air, covering Yi Qing like a huge net. Yi Qing tried his best to protect his body with the iron fan. But even so, that horrifying saber light still numbed his entire body and made his blood boil. The seventh saber attack. This saber attack was launched last, but it was faster than the previous few saber lights and cut open Yi Qing's hairband. Yi Qing's long black hair danced in the air as he put away his iron fan. I still can't beat you. Just now, he had already used his ace attacks. However, under Meng Chong's saber light, those ace attacks were not as good as his normal attacks. He understood that this was because his ace attacks were not perfect yet. Otherwise, it would not be so easy for Meng Chong to find the flaws in his attacks. However, everything has its pros and cons. After this battle, it would be easier for him to find the flaws in his attacks. Meng Chong laughed and said, being able to force me to use the seventh saber attack is already very good. Beside Yi Chen, Wu Zongming sighed and said, I wonder who can beat brother Meng Chong. After saying this, he glanced at Yi Chen. Yi Chen gave him a mysterious feeling. Even now, he still did not know Yi Chen's real power. Maybe there was a chance. Of course, Wu Zongming was not sure. Let's keep watching. Yi Chen did not make any assumptions. Soon, the sixth round ended. Until now, there were only 5 people who had an undefeated record. They were Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong, Peach Blossom Hand Ju Ruo, Ghost Sword Li Kuang, Taifeng and Yi Chen. Although Madman Xiao Yi and Li Yun did not lose, they had a draw after all. They had lost 1 point. After the 7th round, there was one less person who had an undefeated record. It was Peach Blossom Hand Ju Ruo. He was unlucky and met Iron Fan Yi Qing. After exchanging hundreds of moves, he was defeated by Yi Qing. Although he lost, his power still made the crowd fear him. In the crowd's anticipation, the 8th round began. The first 3 rounds could barely be considered exciting. When it came to the 4th round, the crowd burst into cheers. The contestants on the stage were Yi Chen and Ghost Sword Li Kuang. If it were in the morning, the crowd would definitely not be cheering like this. However, Yi Chen had been winning all the time, and his popularity had skyrocketed. He had gained a lot of supporters, including some of the inner disciples. On the VIP seats, Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing's breathing almost stopped. It was not an exaggeration to say that this year's Sky Cloud Martial School's inner disciple ranking competition was one of the most thrilling events in their lives. Every time Yi Chen stepped onto the stage, they would be on tenterhooks for a while, afraid to see Yi Chen fail. Although Yi Chen's results had already made them very satisfied, who wouldn't want their children to do better? Fortunately, up until now, they had seen Yi Chen win again and again, and it seemed to be quite easy. But now it was different. Yi Chen's opponent was the mysterious Ghost Sword Li Kuang. Whether he could win or not was still unknown. Chapter 110. I'm afraid brother Yi Chen is in danger. Senior brother Meng Chong and senior brother Li Kuang have always been able to restrain people with powerful movement techniques. Senior brother Feng Ping had been defeated by the 2 of them. Unknowingly, everyone had added the word senior brother behind Yi Chen's name. Yes, let's see if brother Yi Chen can block brother Li Kuang's first sword. If he can block the first sword, then he can block the second and third sword. Ghost Sword Li Kuang's sword art was unpredictable. As long as one's strength was slightly weaker, it would be difficult to block his sword. Only when one's strength surpassed the opponent's could one win. On the platform, Li Kuang's eyes were cold, his back was straight like a great sword. 30 steps away from him, Yi Chen looked indifferent and calm. I only need one sword to defeat an ordinary person. You are quite strong, you should be able to force me to use my third sword. Li Kuang looked at Yi Chen and said coldly. Yi Chen said, really? I advise you to go all out. Do you think you can force me to go all out with your strength? Li Kuang's eyes became colder. The two stood 30 steps away from each other. One's eyes were cold while the other looked calm. Everyone's breathing stopped as they stared at the stage without blinking. Buzz. The storage ring emitted a faint light and the hidden cloud sword appeared in Yi Chen's hand. He said lightly, if you don't go all out, you won't have any chance of winning. Most of the people were stunned. What? Brother Yi Chen uses a sword, just like Brother Li Kuang. This is amazing. Brother Yi Chen didn't take the previous battles seriously at all. A battle between two great swordsmen, just thinking about it makes me excited. Yi Chen suddenly took out his sword. It was a huge shock to the spectators. After all, they knew that without a swordsman's battle power would be greatly reduced. Only with a sword in hand, could a swordsman unleash his full strength. On the elder seats, a few elders nodded and laughed, interesting. With the hidden cloud sword in his hand, Yi Chen's aura changed. His eyes were as sharp as a sword, capable of penetrating people's hearts. A sharp aura was emitted from his body. Li Kuang was slightly surprised. He really didn't expect Yi Chen to be a swordsman. He couldn't be blamed for not seeing through it, it was because he hid it too well. Under normal circumstances, a swordsman with some achievements would have some qualities of the sword, such as sharpness, coldness, and so on. However, Yi Chen's temperament had nothing to do with these, it looked very ordinary. Of course, he didn't know that Yi Chen had already trained his qi hiding spell to a very high level. Not only could he hide his cultivation level, he could also hide his aura, making it hard for people to see through him. Not to mention Li Kuang, even a clasping Yuan realm sword artist might not be able to see through him. Since you are also a swordsman, that's for the best. Defeating a swordsman is undoubtedly more interesting. I hope you can last longer. Li Kuang's slender right hand was placed on the hilt of his sword. Waves of true qi were injected into the sword, ready to deal a fatal blow at any time. Shoo! Li Kuang moved. His whole body was like a sharp sword that was unsheathed, rushing towards Yi Chen at an extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the two had shortened to 5 steps. Ecstasy. Only then did Li Kuang pull out his sword. Once the sword was out of the sheath, the twisted black sword light seemed slow but was actually fast. It seemed to move from top to bottom, like a nightmare, making people unable to tell where the opponent was going to attack. Zhong Haoran's face turned pale. He was defeated by this sword. The pain of not being able to use his power and not knowing what to do was still fresh in his memory. Clang! Under the nervous and excited gazes of the crowd, Yi Chen also made his move. The angle of the sword was unimaginable, it was like an antelope's horn, a divine stroke. Not only that, Yi Chen's sword light was very thin, it was the kind of thin that was condensed to the extreme, it was even sharper. Clang! Li Kuang's first sword was blocked, but he didn't care. He was about to make his second sword to suppress his opponent. But what surprised him was that Yi Chen took the initiative to counterattack. Peak of perfection. The lone peak of 13 swords was only a top-rank mortal realm sword art, but in the hands of Yi Chen, it was extremely powerful. A stunning sword light pierced through the air and went straight for Li Kuang's chest. Li Kuang took a step back and slashed out with his black long sword, trying to take back the initiative. Yi Chen's eyes were sharp. He twisted his wrist and the sword light exploded in a very small area, layer upon layer, spreading out towards Li Kuang. What? The incoming sword light gave Li Kuang the feeling of a huge mountain, one after another, attacking his mind. At this moment, Li Kuang stopped underestimating Yi Chen, his body rose from the ground and slashed down. Catcher! 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 When the two sword lights collided, the platform was cut into pieces, and the hard stone pillars at the edge of the platform were cut off. This series of actions happened in the blink of an eye. Many people didn't even see how the two exchanged blows, it was so fast that it was terrifying. Such a thrilling battle, every sword is so dangerous, there is no time to react at all. Senior brother Yi Chen is indeed powerful, he easily blocked Li Kuang's first sword and even took the initiative to counterattack. On the other side, Pei Shaoqing and Qiu Ruotong stood together. Qiu Ruotong said, "Your friend is in danger." Pei Shaoqing smiled confidently, "Don't underestimate Li Kuang." In the past year, his sword arts have been improving rapidly, and if I'm not wrong, he has already mastered the 7th sword of the 9 Ghost Shadow Sword. That sword is enough to defeat 3 Yi Chens, and now he has only used 3 sword moves. But I feel that Yi Chen is also not using his full power. Li Kuang's figure floated back and lightly landed on the ground. He solemnly looked at the distant Yi Chen. "I admit that you're qualified to make me go all out. However, it's still impossible for you to defeat me. I'll let you see my true strength now." Li Kuang took a step forward as a sharp qi flow burst out from his body, pouncing toward Yi Chen with an earth-shattering force. At the same time, the black sword light became extremely frightening, turning the formless qi flow into a dense black color, covering the existence of the sword light. 10,000 Ghost Soul Devour. This time, Li Kuang did not hold back. He knew that the 4th, 5th, and even 6th sword attacks would not be able to do anything to Yi Chen. Only the 7th sword attack would have the confidence to defeat Yi Chen without any resistance. The black airflow swept over along with the sword light, but Yi Chen wasn't afraid. He slightly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his eyes were like 2 sword lights, tearing through the void. Break. When Yi Chen waved his sword, all the nearby inner disciples who used swords were frightened. For no reason, the swords on their waists trembled, wanting to fly out of their sheaths and merge with Yi Chen's sword aura. No matter how they tried to suppress it, they couldn't stabilize it. Many big shots on the VIP seats exclaimed, "Sword intent. It's actually sword intent, how is this possible?" Chapter 111. In the Windy Nation, only the leader of the North Snow Martial Academy, Xue Wuren, had comprehended the blade intent. As for whether there were other hidden figures, no one knew. Just like the blade intent, the sword intent was also very hard to comprehend. At least until now, no one in the Windy Nation had ever comprehended the sword intent. Among the younger generation, there were only a few people who had a chance. The head disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Hidden Fragrance Sword Zhu Mai, was one of them. However, no one had expected that in an inner disciple ranking competition, there would be a nobody who had comprehended the sword intent that all the sword artists dreamed of. How shocking was that? No, he hasn't comprehended the real sword intent yet, it can only be counted as half-step sword intent. On the VIP seats, a cyan-clothed man said slowly. Next to him, a beautiful young lady in a pink dress looked confused. "Half-step sword intent?" The cyan-clothed man explained, "I have seen a sword artist who had comprehended the sword intent in the Rudra Nation. That kind of power that could cut through the void was still fresh in my memory. After I came back, I made up my mind that I must comprehend my own sword intent. However, in the past few years, I have only comprehended a little bit of it, but my cultivation has been improving at an amazing speed." The beautiful young lady suddenly understood. No wonder her husband's cultivation was getting more and more profound. It was because he was stimulated by something. However, her husband couldn't comprehend the sword intent no matter how hard he tried, but a 15 or 16-year-old boy had done it. She had to admit that sometimes, a few days of effort from a genius was equivalent to a few years of effort from others. The beautiful young lady was the owner of the Flower Fairy restaurant in the ancient spring town, Flower Fairy. Next to her was her husband, the blue cloud sword artist, Shen Lang. Rumble. While the two were talking, a storm was already brewing on the platform. The half-step sword intent was about 3 to 4 meters long. It sliced through the black qi flow and the horrifying black sword light like cutting a piece of tofu. Then, the sword qi, which was only 2/3 smaller, still had some power left on the ground and flashed past Li Kuang's side. In the next second, The rock wall in front of the VIP seats had become soft, and stone powder was falling down. Li Kuang stood on the spot in a daze. Just now, he felt the presence of death. If it wasn't for the opponent being merciful and deliberately deviating from the attack's trajectory, that sword chi would have definitely cut him in half and turned him into a blood mist with no bones left. Puff. Suddenly, Li Kuang spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the sword chi hadn't hurt him, the half-step sword intent contained within it had made his blood boil. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, but he felt much better. Yi Chen is victorious. The administrator who drew lots recovered from his shock and announced loudly. Sheathing the hidden cloud sword, Yi Chen turned around and walked away. In the elder seating area, the head elder let out a long breath and said, although it's only a half-step sword intent, and it's still uncertain whether he can comprehend the real sword intent or not, the success rate is still 10 times or even 100 times higher than the others. He has already comprehended the half-step sword intent at such a young age. His potential is limitless. In the future, he will definitely become one of the 4 pillars of our Sky Cloud Martial School. However, we still need to observe him carefully and test his loyalty. Of course. On the other hand, Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing were overjoyed. The Duanmu family had a young master Duanmu, and their Yi family had a genius who had comprehended the half-step sword intent. In the future, they would definitely be able to catch up with the Duanmu family, or even surpass the Duanmu family and become the leader of the top 8 families. The others also sighed in their hearts. After today's fight, Yi Chen had become quite famous. Within a couple of days, his name would spread across the entire Windy Nation. Some people were happy, but some people were hiding their evil intentions. A middle-aged man with a scar on his face, who was wearing a navy blue robe, looked down with a hint of killing intent flashing through his eyes. He thought to himself, this kid can't be allowed to live. Otherwise, when he grows up, the Sky Cloud Martial School will surpass the Purple Sun Martial School, and even the North Snow Martial Academy and the Emerald Martial Palace. He is a dangerous person. If anyone knew what the middle-aged man was thinking, they would be very surprised, because this man was not a member of the martial school. Instead, he was a solitary martial artist, named Zhu Liang. He had been famous for decades, and was now at the peak of the early clasping Yuan realm. However, if the leader of the Purple Sun Martial School knew about this, he would not be surprised. Zhu Liang had been the intelligence elder of the Purple Sun Martial School since a long time ago, and was responsible for collecting all kinds of information in the martial world. At the same time, when the Purple Sun Martial School was inconvenient to deal with, he would take care of it. In the past, Zhu Liang had killed a lot of talented martial artists, and had killed those who could pose a threat to the Purple Sun Martial School. Yi Chen, you are so dead. Zhu Liang sneered in his heart, but didn't show it on his face. The fight continued, but in the eyes of the audience, the exciting fight had become boring. Not far away, Song Fei glanced at Yi Chen, and said to Yi Qing, it seems that in this year's Wind Cloud Martial School, only he can compete with Meng Chong. Yi Qing said, the sword chi combined with the half-step sword intent is indeed very powerful, but it is still hard to say if he wants to win against Meng Chong. Of course, both of them are already at the top of the core disciples. The top 10 inner disciples competition is not that important to them. Plus, the Sky Cloud Martial School is just the Sky Cloud Martial School. There are still the other top 4 martial institutions, and outside of the Windy Nation, there are many more powerful martial institutions. Therefore, you have to look at the bigger picture. Being powerful for a short period of time does not mean anything. Song Fei sighed. Yeah. The top young martial artist of our Windy Nation, the young Master Emerald, is only ranked 68th in the Hidden Dragon rank. Who knows how many geniuses will appear in the next Hidden Dragon rank. The 8th round of the competition soon finished. There were 3 people who had a perfect winning record. They were the Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong, Taifeng, and Yi Chen. There were 5 people who had a perfect winning record. The 9th round, the 9th battle. The Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong against the crazy man Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi grinned and said, Meng Chong, this time you are going to lose your first place. It is only the half-step sword intent. The true spirit continent is not dominated by warriors who have mastered the sword intent and blade intent. I, Meng Chong, Do not need to master the blade intent to win against anyone. Meng Chong did not care if Yi Chen had mastered the half-step sword intent or not. For him, all he wanted to do was to win against his opponents again and again, to push his blade to its limit. After he finished talking, Meng Chong's aura became even more intense. What a good Meng Chong, he did not fall for my provocation at all. Xiao Yi was planning to use Yi Chen to attack Meng Chong and distract him, but it did not work at all. Instead, it increased Meng Chong's aura. However, Meng Chong was right, learning the sword intent was indeed a way to become powerful. However, there were so many ways to become powerful, and the sword art was only one of them. Plus, Yi Chen's foundation was still not that deep, and his cultivation was also one level lower than theirs, so there was no need for him to be afraid. If that is the case, let's fight. Xiao Yi yelled. He threw out a punch with a thunder-like chi. Break for me. Meng Chong started running. The long blade in his hand had already been out of its scabbard. The blood-red blade light sliced towards Xiao Yi along with the chi. Dang! Xiao Yi was indeed worthy of being ranked third in the last Hidden Dragon competition. His power was not weaker than Yi Qing's, and he was even better at fighting head-on. With only one punch, he had shattered the weakened blade light. The second blade. The blood-red blade light shot up into the sky. It even changed the color of the air. Xiao Yi did not back out. Instead, he drew a half-circle with both of his hands. A millstone-sized ball of chi gathered in front of his chest and clashed with the blade light. Boom! The power spread out in all directions. Xiao Yi backed out 3 steps. A little bit of blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. Off the stage, Yi Chen thought to himself, Xiao Yi is even more powerful than the ghost sword Li Kuang, but he could only barely block Meng Chong's second blade attack. It would be really hard to win against him. Chapter 112. The Third Blade. Meng Chong's long blade flashed in the air. Suddenly, a bright blood-red blade light appeared, bringing with it an unstoppable sharpness as it slashed towards Xiao Yi. So fast. Xiao Yi could only see a blood-red flash in front of him. The blade light was already 1 meter away from him. At this moment, it was already too late to dodge. Furthermore, that was not his style. If he were to take it head-on, he would definitely vomit blood and retreat. Meng Chong's third blade was not that easy to block. Even the Iron Fan Yi Qing could only protect himself from being injured. Roar! Xiao Yi bent his body, a green halo spread out, a huge Zhen arm extended out from his shoulder, a fist clashed with the blade light. The chi energy formed a circle, and suddenly expanded. Crack, 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 crack. The stone pillars that were far away from each other started to crack. It looked like they would shatter if the wind blew. Meng Chong stopped his attack. He did not attack again. The crowd started to discuss. Brother Xiao Yi actually has a Zhen Qi arm on his shoulder. This is unbelievable. The Zhen Qi arm does not look like a human's, it looks more like a beast's forelimb. You can even vaguely see the scales made of Zhen Qi, and the palm is like a beast's claw, and it is so powerful. It blocked Brother Meng Chong's third blade attack with only 1 punch, and it was not damaged at all. Looks like when Brother Xiao Yi was fighting with Li Yun, he did not use his full power. He must have saved it for Brother Meng Chong. Li Yun's eyes shone, but he did not say anything. Pop! Something even more shocking happened. A Zhen Qi arm extended out from Xiao Yi's left shoulder, but it was green in color, and there were traces of green qi rising from it. It looked like a burning flame. Meng Chong, I have never shown this ancient demon secret art to anyone before. Today you will be the first person to see it. Wiping the blood from his mouth, Xiao Yi looked excited. The ancient demon secret art was something he found in a ruin by chance. It was divided into 3 parts, the first part, the second part, and the last part. He only had the first part. It was not complete, but it was not weak at all. It was comparable to a low-rank Earthrealm martial skill. Ancient demon secret art. Yi Chen had never heard of such a martial technique before. Seems like this Xiao Yi had a fortuitous encounter. Meng Chong glanced at the Zhen Qi arm and said nonchalantly, I don't care what kind of ancient demon secret technique you have learned. In my eyes, there are only those who have fallen. Then go ahead and try. Xiao Yi was already 2 meters tall. With the addition of 2 gigantic Zhen Qi arms on his shoulders, he looked like a giant. An endless pressure spread out from his body, the wind in the plaza seemed to have stopped. What answered him was a series of blood-red saber lights. The saber lights were like crescent moons, and they formed a blood-red wheel that was more than 10 meters tall. The rotating blade aura wheel sliced the air into pieces, rolling towards Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi laughed. He did not retreat. He raised his 2 gigantic Zhenqi arms and welcomed the attack. Bang 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 bang. The 2 true energy arms raised their fists and punched the blood-red Dharma wheel again and again. Instantly, red and green energy splattered in all directions, creating a very beautiful scene. Break. Meng Chong's body appeared in the blood-red Dharma wheel. His right arm suddenly emitted a ball of blood-red light. The light went into his saber and he waved it. Swoosh. The green Zhenqi arm on Xiao Yi's right shoulder was cut off. It flew more than 10 meters away. It turned into pure Yuan Qi and merged with the air. One of senior brother Xiao Yi's Zhenqi arm was cut off. Someone shouted. The others did not have time to talk. They were afraid that they would miss something interesting. Xiao Yi's face turned pale. The Zhenqi arm was formed by his Zhenqi. It consumed a lot of Zhenqi. Now that one of it was cut off, the total amount of Zhenqi was reduced by a third. His blood was boiling. I'll cut off your other arm. Meng Chong did not stop. He flipped his saber and slashed towards the green Zhenqi arm on Xiao Yi's left shoulder. Clang. It was as if the saber had slashed onto a well-tempered steel. It created a lot of colorful sparks. If one looked closely, they would realize that the saber had only cut through half of it. It could not cut through. Xiao Yi forcefully suppressed his boiling qi and blood and Zhenqi. Both of his arms gathered in the air and pushed out a ball of Zhenqi bullet that was glowing with a green light. Meng Chong's saber was stuck on the green Zhenqi arm. He could not pull it out. Seeing the Zhenqi bullet flying towards his chest, he knew that he could not hold back anymore. He opened his mouth and let out a thunderous shout. Meng Chong clenched his left hand into a fist. Blood-red lightning shot out from between his fingers, crackling loudly. Swoosh. The Zhenqi bullet was like a punctured balloon. It disappeared into thin air. Yi Chen shook his head. Even this could not do anything to Meng Chong. Xiao Yi was definitely going to lose. But to be able to force Meng Chong to this extent, it was already very commendable. Break. The saber continued to attack. It finally cut off the green Zhenqi arm, but this green Zhenqi arm was very strange. When it was cut off, it immediately exploded into countless of green flames. It grew bigger as it touched the wind. It burned everything. Swoosh swoosh. Meng Chong saw that the situation was not good. His body flew backwards. The platform he was standing on was instantly burned into a glass-like shape. There was blood coming out of his mouth and nose, but Xiao Yi was not too upset. He said, I lost. The 2 Zhenqi arms had consumed 2/3 of his Zhenqi, plus the Zhenqi bullet from before. There was not much Zhenqi left in his body. He could not fight against Meng Chong anymore. Letting out a breath, Meng Chong said, to be able to force me to this extent, you are the first one. Hehe, same to you. You still have a battle with Yi Chen. His half-step sword intent is not that simple either. Let's see how you are going to beat him. After saying that, Xiao Yi jumped off the platform. When this battle was over, the other 2 platforms had also finished their battles. The remaining 2 battles were not worth watching. They were all inner disciples with very few points. They would definitely be eliminated, including Zhong Haoren. It was not easy for him to make it this far. Finally, the last round of battles began. When it was the 7th battle, the heavyweight battle started again. This battle was between Yi Chen and Tai Feng. One of them was a genius sword artist who had comprehended the half-step sword intent, while the other one was the representative of a late bloomer. Up until now, both of them had maintained a perfect winning record. No matter which side won, there would be one less person with perfect winning record, and that person would definitely compete with the Blood Shadow Blade, Meng Chong, for the title of the first inner disciple. Many people were thinking about this in their minds. Who was more powerful between Yi Chen and Tai Feng? Judging from the previous battles, it was really hard to tell. Yi Chen's sword qi was indeed powerful, but Tai Feng's leg art was also not to be underestimated. Pei Shaoqing, who was as powerful as the ghost sword Li Kuang, was an example. Plus, no one knew if he had any more powerful skills. Tai Feng smiled and said to Yi Chen, "Thank you for your guidance." "Okay." Yi Chen nodded. To be honest, He was a bit scared of Typhoon, since he did not have many chances to show his power, so he had to do it himself. Chapter 113. On the stage, the two stood 50 steps away from each other. Perhaps it was because Typhoon felt that Yi Chen was not easy to deal with. This time, he did not take a passive approach. For the first time, he took the initiative. He slightly lifted his right leg, and a vast force suddenly integrated into his body. Suddenly, the airflow above the square became abnormal, and a fierce wind swept across. On the opposite side, Yi Chen was dressed in a white robe. The hem of his robe was fluttering in the wind like a small boat in a stormy sea. However, when he pulled out the hidden cloud sword halfway, the wind on the square seemed to have been cut into two halves. One half of Typhoon's side was raging, while the other half of Yi Chen's side was calm. Compared to the huge square, the two of them were so small, like they were floating in the air. However, at this moment, the vast square seemed to be unable to contain the two of them, as if it could collapse at any time. Brother Typhoon is going to use that kick again. I wonder how Brother Yi Chen is going to block it. Brother Yi Chen's sword Qi is invincible. I'm afraid he can cut through Brother Typhoon's attack with just one sword. I bet that Brother Typhoon will win, 1,000 gold. Do you dare? Why not? I bet that Brother Yi Chen will win 2,000 gold. Me too. Me too. In the spectator seats, some of the outer sect disciples who had different opinions started to gamble with huge sums of money. For them, they could show off their foresight and earn money at the same time, so why not? As for losing, they didn't even think about it. Seeing this scene on the stage, Pei Shaoqing said lightly, "This kick is very powerful. Fighting with it is like fighting against the whole world, it is boundless and endless." So powerful? Qiu Ruotong, who seemed to be very close to Pei Shaoqing, asked in surprise. If it was not so, I would not have lost so easily. There was no way for me to resist at all. Only Meng Chong can break this force. Qiu Ruotong thought that Yi Chen could also do it, but she did not say it out loud. After all, she would find out soon. One kick to move the wind and cloud. A thunderous roar was heard. Typhoon slightly leaned his upper body back and threw out a kick. He had turned the power of the world into his own and attacked Yi Chen's half of the body. Pop! The calm aura that Yi Chen had created earlier had been broken, and a ferocious airflow swept over with an even more terrifying aura, causing many inner sanctum disciples to lose their footing, and their hearts were filled with shock. Break! Whoosh! In the void, the pure and bright sword Qi flashed and disappeared. The momentum was like a deflated balloon, collapsing on itself. Senior brother Typhoon's momentum has been broken. Senior brother Yi Chen is indeed powerful. The eyes of the inner disciples who supported Yi Chen lit up. It seems like the half-step sword intent is more powerful. Senior brother Yi Chen is really a godly person. One sword and one person, he can even cut through the great momentum. On the VIP seats, the Green Sky Swordsman, Shen Lang, said solemnly, "This kid actually possesses the ability to sever the power of nothingness. I'm afraid he's not far from comprehending the true sword intent." Typhoon's naive expression disappeared as he stared at Yi Chen with a serious expression. Yi Chen was the first person who had given him endless pressure ever since he had comprehended the general trend. In front of Yi Chen, the so-called general trend could not even withstand a single blow. It seemed like he could only attack with brute force. Changing wind and cloud, Typhoon's entire body rose up from the ground. All of the general trend had been infused into his leg power, attacking towards Yi Chen one after another. His body was light and agile, and his leg power was as heavy as a mountain. The airflow around Yi Chen's body surged, and when those countless leg powers landed on him, it seemed like the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. Yi Chen was in the middle of it all, but his expression was calm. Without any hesitation, he waved his hidden cloud sword continuously, and within a blink of an eye, he had thrown out dozens of sword attacks. Each sword attack would shoot out a 3-meter-long thick sword Qi. The sword Qi was so sharp that it seemed like it was going to tear the space in front of it apart. Swoosh, 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 beams of sword Qi shot up into the sky, cleanly cutting through the leg power. It was so sharp that no one could stop it. Typhoon's facial expression suddenly changed. Zhen Qi surged out of his body, and his leg power became even stronger. Wave after wave of Zhen Qi collided with the platform's surface, causing the platform to crack and collapse, and the stone pillars to collapse. Many people had started to support Yi Chen on the way, because Yi Chen's sword attack had been so brilliant, and it had easily broken Taifeng's momentum. Now, seeing Taifeng's power, they couldn't help but worry about Yi Chen. No matter how powerful the sword Qi was, it was still limited, and how could it fight against the endless momentum? Break. At this critical moment, Yi Chen didn't hold back anymore. The hidden cloud sword seemed to be moving slowly, but it was actually moving very fast. The moment the tip of the sword reached its peak, the half-step sword intent burst out. Clang, 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 clang. Caught off guard, the great swords around the inner disciples' waists all flew out of their scabbards and merged with Yi Chen's sword aura. With a sharp aura that was enough to cut through a mountain, the swords rushed towards Taifeng, who was in the air. Clang! A mounting cracking sound arose. Taifeng's leg power was broken, and he was sent flying backwards while vomiting blood. What a terrifying sword power, it even took away our swords. In the future, if any sword artist encounters Brother Yi Chen, he or she will be at a disadvantage. The half-step sword intent is too powerful, and the swords won't be under his control. Ji Shuiyan came out of the Emerald Martial Palace not long ago, and our Sky Cloud Martial School also has Brother Yi Chen. But unfortunately, none of them can be compared with young Master Emerald. Standing on the ruined platform, Yi Chen waved the hidden cloud sword in his hand. Dozens of swords seemed to be attracted by an invisible force, and they all fell down, neatly inserted into the ground in front of the inner disciples, forming a row. This is mine. And mine. All the inner disciples who used swords walked up and pulled out their own swords. Taifeng landed on the ground, and said in admiration, "That last sword attack was brilliant. I didn't expect the half-step sword intent to be so powerful." Yi Chen smiled lightly. "Your leg power is also very powerful. If it was a little bit more powerful, even I wouldn't be able to defeat you. Hihi, the general trend of Taishu is very mysterious, and I only learned it by chance. I won't be able to make a breakthrough in 1 or 2 years, so I can only try to improve my skills. But you have to be careful of Meng Chong, his blade power is too powerful, even the half-step sword intent seems to be unable to defeat him." Indeed. Yi Chen nodded. In front of absolute power, fancy skills were useless. His current half-step sword intent was a bit flashy, and could not be compared to the real sword intent. After Taifeng's defeat, only Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong and Yi Chen were left. In the crowd's eyes, the other disciples had no chance to compete for the first place, and the winner could only be one of them. After the 9th round, there were only 6 rounds left in the 10th round. The next 6 rounds were extremely intense. Some of the inner disciples who had a chance to compete for the top 10 were not afraid of the top 10 inner disciples, so they all used their most powerful skills to fight against the top 10 inner disciples. Unfortunately, the gap between their fighting power was too huge. Even if they tried their best, it would be useless. The 10th round had ended. Meng Chong and Yi Chen were tied for the first place, with 20 points. Li Yunping had won 1 round, so he had 19 points, ranked 3rd. Yi Qing and Taifeng had lost 1 round each, so they had 18 points, ranked 4th. Xiao Yi had lost 1 round and drawn 1 round, so he had 17 points, ranked 6th. Zhu Ruo, Pei Shaoqing, Ghost Sword Li Kuang, and Qiu Ruotong were ranked 6th. There were 3 people who had been eliminated from the ranking: Feng Ping, Dong Haohua, and Song Fei. None of them had more than 15 points. Chapter 114. No matter what, the new top 10 inner disciples had been born, and the previous one had become a thing of the past. This year, the most eye-catching disciples were without a doubt Li Yun, Taifeng, and Yi Chen. The 3 of them had stood out from hundreds of inner disciples. They had overcome all kinds of obstacles along the way, and each of them had performed their best martial arts. Towards the end, they had even defeated a few of the top 10 inner disciples of the last year. Among the 3, Yi Chen was the most talented one. With only the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm, he had won all his battles without losing a single one. He had also learned the half-step sword intent, which was the dream of every sword artist. His comprehensive ability was the best among the young generation of the Sky Cloud Martial School, and he was almost as famous as the core disciples. Of course, becoming one of the top 10 inner disciples was not the end of it. Next was the ranking competition. The ranking competition seemed complicated, but it was actually very simple. That was, the contestants would have to fight against the other 9 disciples one by one. As for those who had already fought against each other, the points would be calculated according to the results. For example, Yi Chen had beaten Feng Ping, Dong Haohua, and Tai Feng, so he had 6 points. He still had to fight against the other 6 disciples, including the Blood Shadow Blade, Meng Chong. For this competition, the leaders of the Sky Cloud Martial School had prepared more than 500 yuan qi pellets. Every disciple who participated in the competition could take one. After taking the yuan qi pellet, not only would they feel energetic, they would also be able to recover from minor injuries. After resting for about half an hour, the head elder saw that all 10 of them were full of energy, so he announced the start of the competition. Yi Chen's first opponent was the rainbow sword, Qiu Ruotong, but she gave up. After all, everyone knew how powerful Yi Chen was, so there was no need to waste any more time. The second opponent was Pei Shaoqing, who also gave up. The third opponent was the peach hand, Zhu Ruo. Although I don't have much hope, I still want to fight against you. Zhu Ruo, who had a beautiful face, lightly landed on the stage. Yi Chen nodded and said, "Let's start." Pa. Right from the start, Zhu Ruo used all of her power. The peach-colored Jin Qi around her body burst out, attacking towards Yi Chen like a thunderbolt. It was obviously a big change from her previous casual fighting style. Before the palm power exploded, the stone pillar behind Yi Chen had already been shattered. What a domineering palm energy! A strange look flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. Without any hesitation, he directly waved his sword, which contained the half-step sword intent. Bang! Under the effect of the half-step sword intent, Yi Chen's attack was incomparably condensed. With only one attack, he had broken through Zhu Ruo's palm power. With a wave of her hand, Zhu Ruo set up a layer of peach-red qi barrier in front of her, and her whole body was sent flying. Yi Chen followed up with another slash. Zhu Ruo gritted her teeth. "If this move still can't do anything to you, I'll admit defeat." As she spoke, Zhu Ruo quickly formed a seal with her hands. Wave after wave of true energy frantically gathered in her hands. In the end, it transformed into a pink true energy bird. The bird spread its wings and shot out like a bolt of red lightning, unable to be seen by the naked eye. So fast. I didn't expect senior sister Zhu Ruo to have hidden her trump card as well. The spectating inner disciples exclaimed. Iron Fan Yi Qing laughed bitterly. His opponent did not use this move when they fought. Of course, he also had his own ultimate move that he had not used. His opponent should know this. The huge Zhen Qi bird arrived in a blink of an eye. It was about to hit Yi Chen. Yi Chen looked calm. The others might not be able to see the trajectory of the huge Zhen Qi bird, but he could. It was all thanks to his powerful soul power. A silver line flashed through the air. The hidden cloud sword in Yi Chen's hand had pointed at the weakest spot of the huge Zhen Qi bird. All of a sudden, the huge Zhen Qi bird became extremely unstable. With a popping sound, it disappeared into thin air. Zhu Ruo was shocked by Yi Chen's sword art. The bluebird seal was so fast, but it was still hit by his sword. Furthermore, it was the weakest spot of the bird. What kind of insight and control did he have? With a bitter smile, Zhu Ruo said, "I have to admit, only you can compete with Meng Chong. I lost." The next battle was not Yi Chen's, but Li Yun's. After all, continuous battles would take a lot of energy, and it would have a huge impact on the battle. Plus, Yi Chen's next opponent was Xiao Yi, who would definitely not admit defeat. It would be a tough battle for sure. Qiu Ruotong knew that she would not be able to compete with any one of the 10 people, but she still admitted defeat. Pei Shaoqing and Li Yun started fighting. After exchanging dozens of moves, Li Yun executed the ultimate skill of sword light division. 14 sword lights shot out in a row. One of the sword lights had 2 layers of force, one bright and one dark. He managed to defeat Pei Shaoqing without any mishaps. After that, it was the battle between Taifeng and Yi Qing. The two of them were evenly matched. After hundreds of attacks, there was no clear winner. However, towards the end of the battle, Taifeng, who had the support of his power, was getting more and more powerful. Yi Qing kept performing his ultimate skills, but he still could not make a comeback. He had no choice but to admit defeat. If the battle continued, he would definitely lose. One after another, the battles started and ended. Soon, it was Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong's turn. His opponent was Li Yun. Li Yun did not waste any time. He attacked immediately. With a wave of his hand, 14 sword lights were shot out. Break. Meng Chong's body moved along with his blade. The blood-red blade light was unstoppable. It easily shattered the incoming sword lights. As for that bright and dark sword light, it was instantly shattered by his fist. Li Yun yelled. Another 3 sword lights were shot out. These 3 sword lights were indeed huge. They almost covered half of the platform. They were flying towards Meng Chong in a triangular formation. Meng Chong did not dare to be careless. The blood-red light shot out from both of his arms and into his long blade. He had broken the incoming sword lights 3 times in a row. After that, he threw a punch at Li Yun's protective Zhenqi layer. Crackle. Blood-red lightning flashed. Li Yun's mouth was bleeding. He was thrown off the platform. Meng Chong's thunder fist is getting more and more powerful. Yi Qing thought to himself. Meng Chong got off the platform. Yi Chen and Xiao Yi got on the platform. If you want to challenge Meng Chong, you will have to get past me first. Xiao Yi's upper body bent, a misty green light shone, 2 gigantic Zhenqi arms extended out from his shoulders, one green and one green. The green one was a little illusory, the green one had qi flow rising, like a burning flame. Just like a giant, Xiao Yi rushed towards Yi Chen with big steps, throwing out a punch. Tyrannical rampage. Out of everyone's expectation, Yi Chen did not use his sword skill. He made a fist with his left hand and threw out a punch. Puff, 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 puff. Under Xiao Yi's shocked gaze, the blue Zhenqi arm was broken into pieces. It turned into the purest Yuan Qi and disappeared in the air. Lose. Xiao Yi did not back off. He threw out an even more powerful green Zhenqi arm from his left shoulder. He wanted to defeat Yi Chen directly. Yi Chen yelled coldly, dominating one direction. Boom. He threw out a punch with a black light. The qi behind him was sucked into it. It was just like Taifeng's power. It clashed with Xiao Yi's green Zhenqi arm. Thump thump thump. Xiao Yi took a few steps back. The green Zhenqi arm was showing signs of collapsing. He was really shocked. The green Zhenqi arm was the evolved version of the blue Zhenqi arm. Its power was more than 50% stronger, but it couldn't even block a punch from his opponent. How was he supposed to fight? The green Zhenqi arm merged with his body. Xiao Yi waved his hand. I'm done. You are the best. Then he turned and walked off the platform. Chapter 115. As long as he beats Brother Yi Qing, it will be the battle between Brother Meng Chong and Brother Yi Chen. Brother Yi Qing should not be able to beat Brother Yi Chen. After all, he lost to Brother Taifeng. You're right. If Brother Meng Chong is still the champion this year, he probably won't get any good rewards. After all, last time he was rewarded with a low-rank Earth Realm Fist Art, Shocking Thunder Fist. But if Brother Yi Chen wins, he will definitely get a low-rank Earth Realm Martial Art. While the crowd was talking, the competition continued. In fact, although the ranking was still uncertain, it was already clear that the first and second place would be either Meng Chong or Yi Chen. The third to fifth place would be Taifeng, Xiao Yi and Yi Qing. The sixth to ninth place would be Zhu Ruo, Li Yun, Li Kuang and Pei Shaoqing. Qiu Ruotong would be the last. In the first round, Li Yun lost to Li Kuang. In the second round, Pei Shaoqing lost to Zhu Ruo. In the third round, Yi Qing lost to Xiao Yi. In the ninth round, Meng Chong walked onto the stage. Taifeng shook his head. I am not his opponent. I give up. Boom. The crowd on the martial field suddenly exploded. Tai Feng had given up, which meant that Meng Chong would fight against Yi Chen in advance. This would undoubtedly be the most anticipated battle of the day. On the east side of the VIP seats, there was a row of teenagers. The oldest among them was only 18 or 19 years old, while the youngest was only 16 or 17. They were all wearing different clothes, but all of them had the unique cloud pattern of the Sky Cloud Martial School on their sleeves. The auras of this group of people were pure and vast. Nearly half of them could contend with Blood Shadow Saber Meng Chong. Some of them even far surpassed Meng Chong. They sat there and talked cheerfully. They were not affected by the atmosphere at all. They gave off an unfathomable pressure. Jing Ju, who do you think will win? Among them, a handsome teenager asked the teenager with a cold expression. The cold teenager said indifferently, boring. The handsome teenager smiled bitterly. Is there a need to be so cold? He turned around and asked the teenager in blue, Brother Luo, what do you think? The teenager in blue was indeed the second disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Luo Hanshan. He lowered his eyes, thought for a while and said, I think it will be Yi Chen. Oh, why is that? The other person beside him looked surprised. Luo Hanshan said, Meng Chong is like a sharp blade that can cut through anything. However, if it's too sharp, it'll break easily, which makes it less beautiful. But Yi Chen is like a vast lake, immeasurably deep. Since the beginning of the competition, he has been calm and unruffled. Thus, I deduced that it would be a long battle from the start. In the end, Yi Chen would be the one to persevere. Of course, speculations are just speculations after all. They can't be trusted. If we want to determine the victor, we'll have to fight. The handsome youth smiled and said, Senior Brother Luo's analytical ability has always been very strong, but I feel the same way. Whether the two of them will win will depend on the later stages. The girl in white, who was ranked 8th, suddenly said, Meng Chong will lose. The first person in line was a slightly older girl with plum blossom embroidery on her clothes. She mocked, Shu Jing, this is the first time I've seen your evaluation. Shu Jing didn't say anything. The other people looked at Shu Jing with different expressions, some of them were nervous, some of them were admiring her. She had just become a core disciple last year, but now she was ranked 8th. Also, it seemed that she had not used all of her power to increase her rank. Otherwise, it would not be impossible for her to be in the top 5. From time to time, the inner disciples below the VIP seats would turn around and take a glance at her. They thought to themselves, this seat is for core disciples. If I can sit in this seat one day, how glorious would that be? 5 of the 10 platforms had already been destroyed. Yi Chen and Meng Chong were standing opposite each other on the platform that seemed to be relatively intact, staring at each other without blinking their eyes. Swoosh! Meng Chong took out his long blade and launched the first attack. A sharp blood-red blade light sliced through the air, hacking towards Yi Chen, who was not far away. Clang! No one knew when Yi Chen had also pulled out his sword. He waved out a stream of sword chi to block the incoming blade light. Take another 10 attacks. Meng Chong's expression was wild. The long blade in his hand was like a wild horse that had just run away from its reins. He crazily waved his blade towards Meng Chong. Ding, 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 ding. All of a sudden, the entire platform was filled with bright sword chi and blood-red blade light. Their figures had already been completely covered by the light, and could not be seen by the naked eye. Shoo! Shoo! The two of them were blown back, and once again, they faced each other. Awesome! Among all the inner disciples, you are the only one who can take 11 attacks from me with all of my power. It had been a long time since Meng Chong had felt this good. Yi Chen's power had made his blood boil, and he was filled with the desire to fight. If he could defeat Yi Chen, he would definitely be able to reach the next level. Yi Chen said, let's continue. All right, let's continue. As soon as they finished talking, their bodies had already collided. The blood-red blade light and the sword chi crisscrossed, fighting against each other. Soon, the platform was destroyed as well. Off the platform, all of the inner disciples were shocked. Apart from the first collision, it was impossible to tell who was fighting who had the upper hand, and who was at a disadvantage. All that could be seen was that the saber was faster than the previous one, and the sword was sharper than the previous one. Towards the end, the shockwave formed by the collision of the sword chi and the saber light was even more terrifying, destroying one platform after another nearby. The figures of the two could no longer be seen, and only the sword chi and the saber light could be seen sweeping from one platform to another, from the ground to the air, and from the air to the platform ruins. They were everywhere, and everywhere was the site of the battle. 100 attacks. 200 attacks. 300 attacks. 500 attacks. The two of them had already exchanged over 500 attacks, but there was still no clear winner. Yi Chen's half-step sword intent could not do anything to Meng Chong's blade power, and Meng Chong's fast blade power could not do anything to Yi Chen either. At this point, it was no longer a competition of power, but a competition of willpower and endurance. Whoever could last longer would be the winner. 1,000 attacks. No winner has been decided yet. Terrifying. An inner disciple looked at the sky. Right then, the sun was setting, and the bright afterglow was shining on the martial field, making the battle look even more intense. He could not help but gasp. Yeah. It would be amazing if the others could block 10 attacks from Brother Meng Chong, but Brother Yi Chen had already exchanged over 1,000 attacks with him. Both of them seemed to have the upper hand. I wonder who will have the last laugh. All of a sudden, the blood-red blade light and the bright sword chi collided with each other, and then shot up into the sky. Waves of powerful shockwaves spread out in all directions, which even caused the platform to collapse. The crowd looked over and saw that Yi Chen's sword had blocked Meng Chong's long blade, and the two of them were frozen there. World-shocking thunder. Meng Chong clenched his left hand into a fist and threw it towards Yi Chen's head. Yi Chen sneered and threw out his left fist, which was shining with a black light. Crack. Like a thunderclap, both of them were sent flying backwards. Again, with the protection of the pure jade body boosting spell, Yi Chen stomped on the platform behind him and shot towards Meng Chong like an arrow. Meng Chong was not scared at all. He threw out another punch. Boom. The two of them moved away from each other as soon as they made contact. There was a faint trace of blood on the corner of Meng Chong's mouth. On the VIP seats of the core disciples, Luo Hansan sighed and said, Yi Chen has won, Meng Chong is still slightly weaker than him. It is not easy for him to be able to fight until now. But this Yi Chen is very powerful. He has been winning all the time, even Meng Chong could not stop his rise. Chapter 116. Again, a blood-red light burst out from Meng Chong's body as he threw out a punch towards Yi Chen along with crackling thunder and lightning. It seemed like he was determined to win or die trying. Sizzle, 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 as Meng Chong threw out his punch, Yi Chen could feel a shocking amount of electricity gathering in his body. His skin felt numb, and all of his hairs were standing up. He knew that he could not afford to be hit by that punch, otherwise even the pure jade body boosting spell would not be able to protect him. Thunder and lightning had always been able to ignore defense. Dominating the king, the third movement of the tyrant fist art was thrown out. A dense black light was brought out by the fist power, forming an umbrella in front of Yi Chen, blocking out the attack of the electricity. Boom. The broken platform under their feet was split into two. One half was made up of electricity, while the other half was made up of scattered black light. Meng Chong puked out a mouthful of blood, which was evaporated in the air by the electricity. He was blown out for hundreds of meters, and finally landed heavily on the marble floor. Crack. The floor cracked under Meng Chong's feet. On the other side, Yi Chen was also blown out for 70 to 80 meters, leaving a crack on the floor. It was clear who would win. Looking down at his bare right arm, Yi Chen was shocked. If he had not performed the third movement of the Tyrant Fist Art, he would not have been able to win so easily. The Tyrant Fist Art was divided into 4 movements. The first style was called Tyrannical Rampage. It belonged to the aggressive type, and it could devour the opponent's Qijin for its own use. However, it could only be used against opponents who were slightly weaker than the user. Against opponents who were stronger than the user, the devouring effect could not be used. The second movement was called Dominating the World. It belonged to the defensive type. When the opponent attacked, It could absorb the yuan qi of the surrounding space and merge it into the fist power. The third movement was called Dominating the King. It belonged to the offensive and defensive type. When the punch was thrown out, an umbrella-shaped black light would form a defensive shield, blocking out the opponent's qi. At the same time, his own fist power would be able to attack the opponent without any hindrance. As for the strongest fourth move, Tyrannical Millennium, Yi Chen currently did not have enough Shen Qi to support it. Unless he was in a life or death situation, he absolutely could not use it. Otherwise, if he used up too much Shen Qi, he would not have the strength to protect himself. Letting out a mouthful of turbid air, Yi Chen raised his head and looked at Meng Chong. Meng Chong stabbed the long blade in his left hand into the ground. He grinned and said, "Great. Today, you are more skilled than me. However, we still have a long way to go. Let's see who will have the last laugh. I'll wait for you." Although that was what he said, Yi Chen didn't really care about it. Up until now, no one who had been surpassed by him had ever surpassed him, just like Wang Gang, Wu Zongming, Huang Bingwen, Zhong Haoren, and so on. If he was surpassed by someone else, then how could he even talk about becoming more powerful? How could he even talk about catching up with the top 4 young masters, and walk out of the Windy Nation and into the world? The world was way too big. The path of a martial artist was like sailing a boat against the current. If one did not keep moving forward, one would fall behind. If one day he was surpassed by someone else, then he would have to reflect on himself. Once Meng Chong was defeated, Yi Chen would definitely become the #1 inner disciple. The other people who had not fought against him before would not be able to stop him anymore. The audience and the VIP seats were all talking about this. Luo Hanshan said, "The most official competition in our school is the Inner Disciple Ranking Competition. Once you become one of the top 10 Inner Disciples, you will be qualified to challenge core disciples and replace them. I think Yi Chen and Meng Chong are already at the top of the core disciples. Taifeng and Xiao Yi are also not bad. You guys should be careful." A few core disciples who were ranked at the bottom said, "Brother Luo, don't worry. We did not waste this year either. We will show them how powerful we are." Indeed, except for that Yi Chen and Meng Chong, who are a bit tricky, the others will have to ask me first if I want to be a core disciple or not. Luo Hanshan smiled. The number of core disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School had always been maintained at 24. If one of them became a core disciple, one of them would have to leave. No one wanted to lose their core disciple status. In the following days, it would definitely be a fierce competition. As for himself, he would also challenge the hidden fragrance sword Zhumai when the time was right. Luo Hanshan turned his head and glanced at the beautiful girl who had plum blossom embroidery on her clothes. When the last ray of light of the sunset shone on the horizon, the ranking competition was finally over. According to the ranking, the first place was Yi Chen, who had a perfect winning record. He had defeated 9 people, so he had 18 points. The second place was Meng Chong with 16 points, the third place was Taifeng with 14 points, the fourth place was Xiao Yi with 12 points, the fifth place was Yi Qing with 10 points, the sixth place was Zhu Ruo with 8 points, the seventh place was Li Kuang with 6 points, the eighth place was Li Yun with 4 points, the ninth place was Pei Shaoqing with 2 points, and the 10th place was Qiu Ruotong with 0 points. When the ranking was announced, Yi Tianhao laughed out loud and said, "Chen is now the #1 inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. He is the #1 genius in the history of our Yi family. The third leader of the Yi family, Yi Tang and Yi Xian, no one can be compared with him." Shun Yuqing said in an annoyed tone, "Look at you, people go to higher places, water flows to lower places. If Chen wants to be compared, he should be compared with the core disciples of those famous martial institutions. Don't make him look bad." "Hihi, I'm just happy." Many important people around them cupped their hands and said, "Congratulations. Leader Yi, your son has already mastered the half-step sword intent at such a young age. He will definitely soar into the sky in the future. Leader Yi, if we have the chance, let's have a drink. Our son is not good enough. Leader Yi, you should ask your son to teach him a lesson." Yi Tianhao was in a good mood. He said, "Not at all, not at all. If you are willing to give me face, please find some time to visit our Yi family. I will definitely welcome you. Of course, of course. The other important people all had their own thoughts, but no matter what they thought, Yi Chen's name had become really famous after today. 16 years old, he had mastered the half-step sword intent. Not to mention the Windy Nation, even in the entire South Shui region, he would not be bad. The only thing he was lacking was his cultivation. Of course, some people were looking forward to Yi Chen's growth, while some were planning to nip him in the bud. Zhu Liang was not the only one. For them, it was very easy to kill a genius, but once this genius grew up, it would not be that easy. They had to kill him as soon as possible. The head elder of the Sky Cloud Martial School slowly stood up. The inner disciple ranking competition has come to an end. Now, the rewards will be given out. The 7th to 10th place will be rewarded with 300 low-rank soul stones, the 4th to the 6th place will be rewarded with 600 low-rank soul stones, the 2nd to the 3rd place will be rewarded with 1,000 low-rank soul stones, the 1st place will be rewarded with 2,000 low-rank soul stones and a low-rank Earth Realm martial art. Besides these, according to the decision made by the Elder Council, the number 1 inner disciple will go to the Emerald Martial Palace with the congratulatory team on the 9th of July. Going to the Emerald Martial Palace, that is a place to broaden one's horizons. All the disciples who are able to go there are not simple. At that time, all the elite martial institutions will definitely gather there, such as the top 4 child, the top disciples among the core disciples. I'm afraid it will not be that easy. All the martial institutions will definitely compete with each other. I heard that the top 10 inner disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace are all as powerful as the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School. No wonder they decided to let Yi Chen go with them. Yeah. Even if Yi Chen is not as powerful as them, with only his half-step sword intent, he will still be able to make the Sky Cloud Martial School look good. I see. How could the Elder Council's plan be hidden from the powerful figures who were always scheming against each other? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.